Chapter 330. How confident are you? The man asked. Chao Wei replied calmly, 60%. Chao Wei was not as relaxed as he looked in the battle between Song Qingyuan and Xiao Budian. Lin Feng and his disciples had too many tricks up their sleeves and often did unexpected things. The man seemed satisfied. 60% is enough. Even if I fail, it's not like I won't gain anything. Chao Wei's tone was indifferent. What else can you gain besides the jade capital mountain stone and the leaves of the treasure tree at the top of the mountain? That's my problem. Don't worry, if you lose, you won't lose anything. The middle-aged man's gentle voice came from the voice transmission crystal. I will make up for all the losses of your celestial pool sect. Chao Wei said, I become a clown in some people's eyes when I enter the arena to bet on your behalf. It's normal for you to make the bet. The middle-aged man laughed softly. It's because you have something to ask of me that you joined forces with me. Chao Wei said calmly, That's right. I must get that bronze void cauldron. A yuanying ritual implement. Even you, Chao Wei, wouldn't value it so much, let alone the celestial pool sect. The middle-aged man said leisurely, Its value shouldn't be in the ritual implement itself, but in other aspects. Chao Wei frowned slightly. Wu Qingru, this has nothing to do with you. The middle-aged man was the current prime minister of the Qin dynasty, Wu Qingru. He smiled. If I remember correctly, 6,000 years ago, there was a powerful itinerant cultivator who cultivated to the primordial soul stage. He called himself the Mountain and River Tao Master, and his ritual implement was called the Void Mountain and River Cauldron. Hearing this, Chao Wei's expression changed slightly. Wu Qingru continued, Rumor has it that the Mountain and River Tao Master became enemies with your celestial pool sect and eventually died on the Arctic snow plains in the north. The ritual implement, the Void Mountain and River Cauldron, also fell into your hands. But other than the Void Mountain and River Cauldron, this cauldron also had 9 yuanying ritual implements. They're called the 9-child Mother Bronze Void Cauldron. They are set with the ritual implement, the Void Mountain and River Cauldron. Wu Qingru slowly smiled and said, Although the Void Mountain and River Cauldron is a magic treasure, it might not be worth your effort. Presumably, as the Mother Cauldron, the Void Mountain and River Cauldron has some secret, but you need all 9 cauldrons to unravel the secret. At this moment, Chao Wei calmed down and said indifferently, What? You want to interfere in this matter? Wu Qingru gave a negative answer. I didn't mean that. Please don't mind me. It's just that I have to do some research on my partners. On the other hand, I also want to see the attitude of the Celestial Pool sect toward this cooperation. I want to know how much you value this cooperation and how much effort you will put into it. In this way, I can calculate the investment on my side and evaluate the possibility of success of this cooperation. Chao Wei nodded. That's right. That's human nature. At this point, he suddenly changed the topic. Then, please tell me, how confident are you that after obtaining Lin Feng's Jade Capital Mountain Rock and Treasure Tree Leaf, you will be able to locate Jade Capital Mountain in the chaotic streams of space? Less than 50%, Wu Qingru replied calmly. After all, it's just a guess. I can only come to a definite conclusion after obtaining the rock and leaf and studying it. It's still too early to talk about this. Especially the treasure tree on top of Jade Capital Mountain. No one has ever seen it or come into contact with it. Even I don't know anything about it. Wu Qingru said, However, a 50% chance is enough for me to make a decision. In the process of carrying out the plan, I will continuously improve it and finally reach 100% confidence. Chao Wei did not deny this. That's your problem. Wu Qingru did not hide anything and said straightforwardly, In my plan, the situation on your side is the most difficult part for me to control. Chao Wei was expressionless. I know my disciple. I have a 60% chance of success. I dare not say it's higher, but it's definitely not lower. Wu Qingru said, If you say so, then I can rest assured. His voice became softer and softer, a sign that he was about to end the transmission. Before ending the call, Wu Qingru suddenly said something that made Chao Wei's heart skip a beat. After the assembly, the ancient desolate sea world will open. There might be other changes. Tell your disciples not to be impatient." After saying this, the communication ended. Chao Wei frowned. He knew that this last sentence was Wu Qingrou's extra care for him as a collaborator, but the other party's words were vague, causing Chao Wei's heart to be filled with doubt. While he was talking to Wu Qingrou, inside the hidden dragon pot, the little guy and Song Qingyuan had already begun a fierce battle. The little guy transformed into a 2-meter-tall ghost of wind and thunder and attacked Song Qingyuan, trying to fight in close combat. Although Song Qingyuan had the double body of ice and fire, in terms of physical strength, he was still not the little guy's opponent. The little guy even wanted him to use the double body of ice and fire to fight with him. Song Qingyuan was obviously aware that his ice and fire double body, if he were to go head-on against Xiao Budian and Do Kuan, who were experts of the fleshly body, it would still not be enough. Therefore, he might as well not waste any effort this time and concentrate on using various techniques to deal with Xiao Budian. Although he had also cultivated the Ice Flame Divine Art, which was the fundamental Taoist magic of the Heavenly Lake sect, his style was different from that of Mu Jihai and the others. Fang Zhong's Ice and Fire Divine ability was the crudest. He had only just cultivated this divine ability and did not have any fine control. He just released his ice and pushed it towards his opponent, relying on the power of the ice and fire itself to win. Dao Yuding's attainment in the Ice Flame Divine Art was higher than Fang Zhong's. She could already perform fine control over it, but she was still only at the rudimentary level. Her fighting style was also straightforward, and she used brute force. Mu Jihai, who had cultivated for 100 years in the Golden Elixir period, had far higher attainment in the Ice and Fire Divine ability than his 2 junior brothers and sisters in the Foundation Establishment stage. Especially since he specialized in this spell, his control of the Ice and Fire Divine ability was already very detailed, and all kinds of changes were easy to use. Even the elders in the Yuaning period of the sect might be better than him in terms of magic power, but in terms of controlling the Ice and Fire Divine ability, they might not even be as fine as Mu Jihai. And now, Song Qingyuan once again proved why he was the chief disciple of the Heaven Lake sect in the Golden Elixir period, and why Mu Jihai could only look up to his back. The number of spells he cultivated was far more than Mu Jihai. Any one of the spells was something that ordinary disciples of the Heaven Lake sect had to spend a lot of effort to cultivate. And in the Ice and Fire Divine ability that Mu Jihai was most proficient in, Song Qingyuan was not the slightest bit weaker than him, and even better. Song Qingyuan's Ice and Fire Divine ability floated in the space of the hidden dragon pot, and unexpectedly had a tendency to vaporize, like a wave of ice mist drifting in the air. No matter which direction Xiao Budian launched an attack from, it would be blocked by the Ice and Fire Divine ability. He did not know if it was because he had just recovered from a serious injury and remembered the lesson. But this time, Xiao Budian's fighting style became a bit more conservative and was far less wild and unrestrained than in the past. If it was the time when he fought with Mu Jihai, facing the current situation, Xiao Budian would have directly used his own strength to forcibly break through. But now, his expression was cautious, and he meticulously dealt with Song Qingyuan's Ice and Fire Divine ability. He launched probing attacks from all directions, trying to find Song Qingyuan's weakness, and then he would directly attack. Did he suffer a loss once and gain experience? Or is it that he wants to preserve his strength and defeat me with the least amount of effort, and then ensure that he will still be in good condition for the finals? Song Qingyuan guessed, but he is so cautious, it's hard for me to deal with him. Of the 2 things that Master instructed me to do, I have only completed one of them. As for the other one, if this kid continues to be so conservative, then it will be difficult to deal with. Thinking of this, Song Qingyuan made up his mind, and his fighting style changed. Xiao Budian was conservative, but he became aggressive. The Ice and Fire Divine ability all turned into the shape of flames, sweeping up a cold wind, and pressed toward Xiao Budian. Outside the hidden dragon pot, when Lin Feng saw this scene, the corners of his mouth revealed an imperceptible light smile. Song Qingyuan's attacks were vigorous, engulfing the entire hidden dragon pot, and the group of Heaven Lake sect cultivators watching the battle outside the pod were all greatly excited. A Heaven Lake sect disciple laughed. Although Senior Mu lost, he has dampened Shi Tianhao's spirit and courage. He has lost his spirit and courage. How can he fight against Senior Brother Song? Senior Brother Song will definitely enter the finals. If that great Qin dynasty's Shi Xingyun can exhaust as much of Zhu Yi's strength as possible, Senior Brother Song will be able to obtain the first place easily. When many low-level disciples heard this, their faces revealed expressions of agreement. Even the group of Golden Elixir period cultivators had smiles on their faces, and they seemed to be extremely satisfied. Only the few Yuanying stage old ancestors from Heaven Lake sect, who were leading the group, looked at the changing battle situation inside the pod, and a layer of worry gradually appeared on their faces. There were even some hints of anger. However, in their hearts, they were even more puzzled. He is too rash. His spiritual art is wide open, and it looks powerful, but in reality, it is far from as delicate as before, and there are many flaws. Could it be that Song Qingyuan has become complacent just by being in the top 4 of the Dharma Assembly? Or could it be that he sees that Shi Tianhao has become coward, so he is eager to win? With Song Qingyuan's past temperament, he shouldn't be like this. As expected, the eyes of the little guy, who had been patiently fighting with Song Qingyuan, suddenly lit up. The power of wind and thunder gathered under his feet, and he stepped heavily on the ground. His entire body broke through the flaws in Song Qingyuan's ice flame divine ability like lightning and rushed towards him. Song Qingyuan's face darkened, and he felt vaguely annoyed. He retracted the ice flame and once again established a stable line of defense. However, the collapse of a 1,000-mile dike could be caused by an ant's nest. Once there was a flaw that was penetrated by the other party, it was only a matter of time before the entire dike collapsed. No matter how hard Song Qingyuan tried, the situation was already out of his control, and the scales of victory were gradually tilted towards the little guy's side. The battle situation inside the dragon concealing pot took a turn for the worse. Song Qingyuan was careless, and in an instant, he gave up his advantage. He fell from the upper hand to the lower hand, and was being pressured by the little guy step by step. Outside the dragon concealing pot, Lin Feng watched this scene and secretly smiled. If you want to play, I'll fulfill your wish. He turned to look at Chao Wei and casually said, Sect Leader Chao, I want to raise the stakes again, but I don't know if you can still accept it. Chapter 331. In the current situation, the little guy had turned the tables and gained the upper hand. Lin Feng opened fire at Chao Wei again. For many people, the competition between Lin Feng and Chao Wei, the two great sect leaders, was sometimes more intense than the competition at the spell assembly. Previously, when Dao Yuding and Wang Lin fought, both sides once again increased the stakes of the original bet. At this moment, the bet once again escalated. Everyone looked at Chao Wei without blinking, wanted to see if he would accept the challenge. After all, in the hidden dragon kettle, Song Qingyuan was at a disadvantage. Sect leader Lin is interested. Of course, I don't mind. Chao Wei's expression did not change. He seemed like a tiger that would not fall even if it died. He wanted to fight to the death with Lin Feng. He looked towards Lin Feng, lightly saying, If your disciple loses, other than the frosty fire ice corpses and Yujing Mountain rocks, you also need to give me a tree branch from your Yujing Mountain. Are you willing? Lin Feng smiled and said, You've been thinking about these things of mine? After pausing for a moment, Lin Feng said, Okay, but if my disciple wins, apart from the original bet, I want Sect Master Chao to add a heaven flower of 2 extremes, a specialty of the Heaven Lake. Is Sect Master Chao willing to accept? Chao Wei frowned slightly and did not answer immediately. Shi Zongyue and the other primordial spirit big shots watched this scene with interest. The stakes Lin Feng wanted to add this time were really making the Tianqi sect bleed. The bipolar flower was a special spirit flower of the Tianqi Mountain. It was born between the 2 extremes of ice and fire. It contained many principles of ice and fire, creation, and many other concepts. It could communicate with the heaven and earth, and had endless magical uses. The most outrageous thing was that this flower only bloomed once every 3,600 years. Its value exceeded that of a yuanying magic tool. In a sense, it was not much worse than a magic tool embryo. The red flame ice flower that the little guy won from the bet with Mu Jihai was a variant of the bipolar flower. That was because the bipolar nature flower was too precious and there were very few of them, so the Tianqi sect cultivated and improved it. In the end, they obtained the vermilion flame ice flower. Even though it was still very rare, the production rate was much higher than the bipolar nature flower. However, in terms of function and quality, it was far inferior. It wasn't even worthy of carrying shoes for the bipolar innate flower. Although Wu Qingru had already promised that he would compensate Chao Wei and Lin Feng for everything they lost in the bet. Even if he couldn't compensate them with the original items, he would compensate them with treasures of equal value. However, the fact that Lin Feng wanted the bipolar heavenly flower still made Chao Wei frown. However, he quickly nodded. It's a deal. Seeing that Chao Wei had agreed, everyone in the venue became even more excited. At this moment, the battle in the Hidden Dragon Pot was given even more meaning, making all the spectators even more interested. At this moment, Northern Militant Prince Wuxian suddenly said, "Such an exciting battle! I'll also join in the fun." As soon as he said this, the entire venue was silent for a moment, but everyone's emotions were rising. Everyone knew that the Northern Militant Imperial Court and the Tianqi sect were not on good terms. Now, that Northern Militant Prince Wuxian had suddenly made a move, it was definitely aimed at the Tianqi sect. Sure enough, Prince Wuxian smiled and said, "Of the two juniors in the Hidden Dragon Pot, I'm more optimistic about Sect Master Lin's disciple, Shi Tianhao. I'll bet a golden bear king on him and your Tianqi sect's Lung Huayu mirror. Chao Wei, do you dare to accept?" There was a slight commotion in the venue. The Golden Bear King was one of the most important treasures of the Northern Militant Imperial Court. It was obtained from slaughtering a Demon King level Arctic snow bear. After a human cultivator used it, their physical strength would be greatly enhanced without any side effects. In the history of the Northern Militant Imperial Court, all the powerhouses who had left behind epic legends had their share of the Golden Bear King behind them. A Demon King level Arctic snow bear might not even appear in 1,000 years, not to mention that it had to be killed to obtain its gallbladder. The value of this Golden Bear King was no less than that of the bipolar innate flower. Chao Wei's face was expressionless. "You want to take advantage of the situation and still want my Tianqi sect's Lung Huayu mirror? I thought you wanted to win back the snow tassel you lost to me before." Being stabbed by Chao Wei, Prince Wuxian was not angry at all. He only laughed and said, "Do you only say do you dare or not? Why wouldn't I dare? It's just that I don't like your Golden Bear King." Chao Wei calmly said, "If you want to bet, then take out your Northern Militant Soul Fiend Jade." Prince Wuxian's laughter came to an abrupt stop as he stared at Chao Wei with wide eyes. Hearing the name Soul Fiend Jade, more than half of the people present had a blank look on their faces. They didn't know what it was, nor did they know why Prince Wuxian was suddenly so afraid. Only the few primordial spirit elders and a few yuanying ancestors had a flash of understanding in their eyes. After Lin Feng inquired about the system, he found out that the Soul Fiend Jade was an extremely rare type of jade that could only be found in the Northern Militant Imperial Court. It had the miraculous effect of attracting the souls of heaven and earth. It was the greatest help for high-level, Northern Militant Divine Soul cultivators in their cultivation, helping them cultivate Divine Soul techniques. But conversely, the person who wore the refined Soul Fiend Jade also had a defensive effect against other people's Divine Soul attacks and could resist the damage of Divine Soul techniques. Chao Wei didn't want the Golden Bear King Gall Jade and instead wanted the Soul Fiend Jade. His eyes couldn't be said to be not crafty. At his and Prince Wuxian's level, other than magic treasure embryos, and a few rare treasures of heaven and earth, nothing else was attractive. Magic treasures and magic treasure embryos were too precious, so they wouldn't easily be used as gambling stakes. Therefore, the things being gambled were all stored for the sect, left for talented disciples or Yuanian cultivators to use. The Tianqi sect didn't specialize in physical body martial arts. Even if someone took the Golden Bear King Gall Jade, wanting to surpass a northern militant cultivator in terms of physical strength was still a pipe dream. Moreover, the Tianqi sect had the ice flower burning flame technique. In a battle of high-level battle strength, they didn't need to fear the northern militant martial artists. On the contrary, the divine soul warlocks of the northern militant had been a headache for the Tianqi sect for thousands of years, but they never had a good way to deal with them. When Senglaha was defeated by Shi Xingyun in the top 16, many Tianqi sect cultivators celebrated. Otherwise, let alone Mu Jihai, even Song Qingyuan would have a headache if he encountered Senglaha. And the Soul Fiend Jade produced by the Northern Militant Imperial Court was a great weapon against divine soul warlocks. The Northern Militant Imperial Prince Zhuoxian stared at Chao Wei for a long time, then snorted, "Fine, I'll use the Soul Fiend Jade to bet your Tianqi sect's Lunghua Dark Mirror." Chao Wei nodded non-committally. "If you want to give me a gift, I'll kindly accept it." At this time, Swordsman Flowing Light suddenly said, "My opinion is different from His Highness Imperial Prince Zhuoxian. I'm more optimistic about sect leader Chao's disciple, Song Qingyuan." He looked at Lin Feng and said slowly, "I want to use something as a wager. I want to bet on Song Qingyuan, on the dark light meteoric iron in sect leader Lin's hands. What does sect leader Lin think?" As he spoke, a rock that looked like a stone tablet suddenly appeared in Swordsman Flowing Light's hand. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. He saw that there was a sword mark left on the rock. It was clear and straight. At first, it looked inconspicuous, but upon closer inspection, one would find that this sword mark was condensed with an incomparably powerful sword intent that did not dissipate. Looking at the appearance of the stone tablet, one could tell that the sword mark had been left here for a long time, but had not dissipated. What was even more astonishing was that the sword intent within it was extremely fierce and fierce. Under normal circumstances, not to mention a rock, even 1,000 miles of land would have a bottomless chasm cut open. But this sword intent and sword chi were extremely fierce and fierce, condensed without being released. Shushan's sword sect, Little Shang's sword. Lin Feng had already recognized the origin of the mystical sword technique that had left this sword mark. Swordsman Flowing Light nodded. "This is a sword mark left behind by Shushan's Little Shang, Sword Venerable, when he visited my cloud-traversing peak. How about I use this as a wager for sect leader Lin's dark light, meteoric iron?" Swordsman Luminary looked at Swordsman Flowing Light with an inquisitive gaze. If he obtained this sword mark stone tablet, it was very likely that he would be able to find out more about Shushan's Little Shang sword. He might not be able to cultivate Little Shang's sword, but it would be much more convenient for him to face attacks from Little Shang's sword in the future. The value of the sword marked stone tablet itself did not need to be mentioned. But if Swordsman Flowing Light used this item as a wager and lost to Lin Feng, then things would be interesting. It was impossible for someone like Swordsman Flowing Light not to consider this point. The possibility of a moment of carelessness was zero. The only explanation was that he had done it on purpose. Lin Feng was silent for a moment, then nodded. "Since Swordsman Flowing Light is in such a good mood, I will naturally keep you company." Tao Master of Gambling Zhuge Guang stared at the hidden dragon pot for a while before he suddenly laughed. "I've seen all of you gambling during this session of the Dharma Assembly. It really got me thinking. How can I not participate in such a gamble?" Zhuge Guang smiled as he flipped his palm and took out an item. That item floated in the air, and everyone could see it. In just an instant, the spell gathering was in an uproar. Apart from the few primordial spirit big shots present, everyone's eyes were burning with passion as they looked at this item. It was a root of a plant that looked like ginseng. It had lush and developed hair, overflowing with spiritual energy, and its color was as lustrous as white jade. Under its white, jade-like skin, there were 8 scattered red rays, rising and falling together and beating rhythmically. Its color was as red as blood, just like the blood vessels in a human body. The spiritual ginseng itself was like a living animal. Every time the red light flashed, the spiritual ginseng's body would vibrate, just like a human breathing. Every time the red light flashed, the spiritual ginseng's white jade-like appearance would become even more crystal clear. Someone exclaimed, "It's the 8 meridian blood ginseng." Most of the people present knew about it. To every cultivator, the 8 meridian blood ginseng was a rare treasure because it could increase one's natural lifespan. What was even more heaven-defying was that the higher the cultivation of the person who consumed the 8 meridians blood ginseng, the longer their lifespan would be. If a nascent soul cultivator consumed the 8 meridians blood ginseng, their lifespan would increase by 1,000 years. To every cultivator who had not reached the primordial spirit stage, the 8 meridian blood ginseng was a priceless treasure. After all, even a Yuanying stage cultivator could only live for 3,600 years. There were countless Yuanying stage cultivators who had reached the end of their lifespan but failed to reach the primordial spirit stage and died helplessly. Only a primordial spirit cultivator like Tao Master Zhuge could use this item. If it was anyone below the primordial spirit stage, they would immediately be surrounded and robbed. Zhuge Guang smiled and was about to speak when Tao Master Azura Huoxiu, who had been silent since the beginning of the spell gathering, suddenly spoke. "I'll also participate in this gamble." The originally noisy venue instantly fell silent. Everyone stared blankly at Huoxiu, Zhuge Guang, and the other big shots. There was only one thought in their minds: madness. Chapter 332. Originally, it was only a bet between Lin Feng and Chao Wei. But at this moment, for primordial soul experts, Northern Militant Prince Zhuoxian, Flowing Light Sword Venerable, Gambling Venerable Zhuge Guang, and Azura Venerable Huoxiu participated together. The degree of madness was something that even Lin Feng and Chao Wei, the two original parties involved, did not expect. In particular, Huoxiu, who had been silent and seemed to be indifferent to the entire Wilderness Sea assembly, actually spoke up. It was really beyond many people's expectations. In the previous assembly, even when Huo Ming, Huo Chun, and other disciples of the Huo family were defeated and the other Huo family cultivators were annoyed, Huoxiu didn't have much of a reaction, as if it had nothing to do with him. Zhuge Guang was also a little surprised and looked at Huoxiu with a smile. "Oh, since Master Hua is also interested, why don't you speak first?" Huoxiu nodded and didn't stand on ceremony. The air in front of him shook slightly, revealing a treasure flashing with green light. It was a skull that seemed to be carved out of jade, but it was small and exquisite, only the size of a baby's fist. Green light flowed around it, making it look quite exquisite. This skull, carved from jade, didn't have the slightest fluctuation of spiritual qi or dharma power. Everyone present was baffled. This thing wasn't as famous as the 8 meridian blood ginseng. Everyone stared at it for a long time, but no one could recognize its origin. But Tao Master Blue Thunder, Chao Wei, and other primordial soul stage powerhouses all had serious expressions, much more serious than when they saw the 8 meridian blood ginseng. Only a few people present could vaguely sense a faint death chi from this skull. The death chi was very faint, and it was not easy for primordial soul stage powerhouses to sense it. But the death chi was extremely pure, as if it came from the 9 serenities hell. It was the most realistic death chi. What moved them even more was that this skull that Huoxiu took out was shockingly a magic treasure embryo. Zhuge Guang was moved and said, "Master Hua, you want to use this as a bet?" Huoxiu looked indifferent and nodded. "Yes, this magic treasure embryo jade skull is my bet." As soon as these words were spoken, the others found out that this seemingly inconspicuous skull was actually a magic treasure embryo, and the sound of gasping resounded throughout the venue. Huoxiu's item could be said to be the most important wager since the beginning of the Dharma assembly. Even with the pressure from the elders of the sect, everyone's emotions were completely ignited. In fact, even the Yuanying patriarchs were shaken. Huoxiu actually used the magic treasure embryo as a wager. Then what he wanted was definitely not an ordinary item. Tuntin asked Zhu Yi, What does he want to bet with us? Huoxiu's participation in the bet had already surprised everyone, but what he did next was even more shocking. Silently, he looked at Chao Wei and said, I bet that Xianmin Tianzong and Shi Tianhao will win, and I bet a piece of Arctic flaming sun rock on you, sect leader Chao. Do you accept? Tuntin's eyes widened as it looked toward Huoxiu in surprise. It never imagined that his target would not be Lin Feng, but Chao Wei. After all, Huochun had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Wang Lin, and Huoming had also been defeated by Zhu Yi. In many people's view, the enmity between Xianmin Tianzong and the Huo clan had been formed. But now, it seemed that a primordial soul expert like Huoxiu would not fight with others for a moment of pride, and he did not care about the outcome of a foundation establishment or golden elixir disciple. For Huoxiu, it was not shameful for his disciple to lose to the enemy. It was just that he was not skilled enough, and he would train harder when he returned home. Lin Feng and Chao Wei's expressions were calm. After hearing Huoxiu's words, Chao Wei pondered for a moment before replying, Okay, I accept. The Heaven Pool Sect's fundamental cultivation method was called the Arctic Flaming Sun Mysterious Spell, and the Arctic Flaming Sun Rock was a crystallization formed from the magic power of almighty cultivators who had reached the primordial soul stage. It took a lot of effort to form it. In terms of value, it was definitely not comparable to a magic treasure, but it could be considered equal to a magic treasure embryo. However, this rock could not be refined into a magic treasure. Shi Zongyue glanced at Huoxiu. You want to use the Arctic Flaming Sun Rock as a sharpening tool to improve yourself? This old man can feel that you're already standing on that doorstep. The Arctic Flaming Sun Rock is both hot and cold. It is indeed a good material to refine the knife path and the sword path. Huoxiu's expression was calm. He did not speak, but he clearly did not deny Shi Zongyue's speculation. Zhuge Guang smiled. Compared to clan leader Huo's Emerald Skull, my item is somewhat unpresentable. He looked at Lin Feng and said, Sect leader Lin, please don't laugh at me. I will use this 8 channels blood ginseng to bet on your outer heaven core furnace. What do you think, sect leader Lin? In terms of value, the two items were not easy to compare. In the hands of a pill refinement expert, the outer heaven core furnace was no different from a divine weapon. It could greatly save on medicinal ingredients, increase the success rate of pill refinement, and obtain a large number of pills. However, the 8 channels blood ginseng was undoubtedly also extremely precious. With this treasure, one would have thousands of years of lifespan. They would have more time to cultivate Tao techniques and climb to a higher level. They would have more time to live freely in the world. Lin Feng smiled slightly. It is truly a pity that Tao Lord Gamble is not participating in such a bet. Since Tao Lord Gamble is in the mood, how could I refuse? At this moment, all the cultivators who were participating in the Dharma assembly felt dizzy. A rock from Mount Jade Capital, a branch from the profound Heaven Treasure Tree, a pair of peaked Demon Commander soaring snow feathers, a celestial flower of 2 extremes, a frosty fire ice corporeal, a jade skull, an Arctic flaming yang stone, a soul fiend jade, a Lunghua dark mirror, a little Shang sword scar seal, a dark light mysterious metal, an 8 meridian blood ginseng, a cauldron of outer heaven, a bronze void cauldron, and an ice soul cold light mirror. Every single item was a rare and precious treasure. Ordinary cultivators, and even some of the smaller sects, would treasure these items as much as they could. They were afraid of losing even the slightest bit of it. However, here, there were only the stakes of a bet. Even if this bet was between a group of primordial spirit experts, it could only be described as crazy. Apart from the legend of Zhuge Guang gambling with other people in the past, it was difficult to find a crazier bet than this. At this moment, everyone's gaze fell on the hidden dragon pot. They thought to themselves, I wonder if the 2 people in the pot realize that the outcome between them has become so important. Inside the hidden dragon pot, the battle between Xiao Budian and Song Qingyuan was in full swing. Song Qingyuan had previously been suppressed by Xiao Budian and had not been able to recover. It should be about time. Master Side has already arranged everything. Song Qingyuan thought to himself, it's time to make a move. Otherwise, if I continue to be suppressed, the disadvantage will become greater and greater. At that time, it will be really difficult to make a comeback. Thinking of this, Song Qingyuan's hands came together. The ice flames around his body suddenly changed, becoming pure ice and raging fire. The two extreme forces condensed into a vortex in front of him. This was the technique he had used to defeat the northern militant martial cultivator Do Kun, spirit of ice and fire. Within the vortex of ice and fire, a powerful force was being nurtured, and this force was not simple. Xiao Budian could feel an emotion unique to life within it. It was as violent as raging fire, yet as cold as ice. The two emotions merged together, as if a life was about to rush out of the vortex of ice and fire. Xiao Budian looked carefully, only to feel that the center of the vortex of ice and fire was like a human eye, mercilessly watching him. In the next moment, a violent force exploded out of Song Qingyuan's vortex of ice and fire, blasting toward Xiao Budian. The strength of Do Kuan's physical body was not inferior to Xiao Budian's movement of wind and thunder to the extreme. Even so, he was seriously injured by Song Qingyuan's move and could no longer fight. Xiao Budian was calm and fearless. The 2-meter-tall, ghostly body of wind and thunder suddenly dissipated, returning to his original appearance. Facing Song Qingyuan's spirit of ice and fire attack, Xiao Budian slowly raised his right hand. It was as if his right hand was bearing a heavy burden, so heavy that it could not be any heavier. On his right hand, there were 2 rays of light, one green and one purple, circulating. They seemed subtle, but from within came a destructive force that caused one's heart to palpitate. Xiao Budian gave up on the movement of wind and thunder. The dispersed power of wind and thunder did not disappear, but all gathered on his right hand. Immediately after, Xiao Budian aimed at Song Qingyuan's vortex of ice and fire and punched out. Outside the dragon concealing pod, as the cultivator with the strongest physical strength in this spell assembly, Northern Virtuous Prince Zhuxian suddenly opened his eyes wide. All the Northern Virtuous Prince martial artists opened their eyes wide, staring fixedly at Xiao Budian and the dragon concealing pot. Not to mention the terrifying strength of the little guy's fist. It was even more unbridled, like a storm. The fist intent was as berserk as rushing thunder, and this fist intent seemed to condense into substance. 2 transformations appeared, and it continuously grew. And in the process of growing, the wind and thunder were constantly being destroyed, creating an explosive and terrifying force. Constantly growing, constantly collapsing, constantly being destroyed, constantly erupting, and constantly increasing in power. 8 trigrams collapsing heaven hammer, 2 extremes hammer. Xiao Budian punched out, but it was the divine physical martial art that he had learned from Lin Feng, the 8 trigrams collapsing heaven hammer. Within it was fused with his own martial arts understanding, creating this incomparably terrifying punch. This punch wanted to annihilate the wind and thunder, destroy the world, and destroy the 2 poles. The violent punch collided head-on with Song Qingyuan's ice and fire spiritual conception technique, and the constantly spinning vortex of ice and fire was directly destroyed by Xiao Budian's punch. The will of life that was born in the vortex of ice and fire seemed to let out a silent cry of despair, filled with anger and unwillingness, but it was powerless to struggle, and was destroyed by Xiao Budian along with the vortex of ice and fire. Facing such a violent and overbearing punch from Xiao Budian, Song Qingyuan's face revealed a shocked expression, and a layer of coldness floated in his heart. When fighting with Mu Jihai, he really held back his strength. Otherwise, with this punch, Mu Jihai would not have any room to fight back. With this thought, Song Qingyuan did not dare to have the slightest bit of hesitation. His left hand formed a strange seal, and the index and middle fingers of his right hand formed a sword, pointing towards the space between his eyebrows. I have to use my trump card. Otherwise, I will lose without a doubt. I originally wanted to leave it for that Zhu Yi, but now it looks like I can't hold back anymore. Chapter 333. Song Qingyuan pinched a strange spell with his left hand. As his 5 fingers opened and closed, it was as if frost was condensed, but also as if flames were soaring, perfectly combining movement and stillness. His right index and middle fingers were pinched together, pinching a sword spell. He did not point them at Tiny Tot, but at the center of his eyebrows. Seeing his action, the disciples of the Tianqi sect were the first to explode. Everyone stared at Song Qingyuan in the hidden dragon pot. Ice and fire invisible sword chi. A voice exclaimed. Because the emotions were too excited, it sounded like a scream. All the cultivators of the Tianqi sect looked at their sect leader, Chao Wei. Ice and fire invisible sword chi. That's the unique skill created by the sect leader. Even the ice and fire elders don't know it. Mu Jihai, who had always regarded Song Qingyuan as his competitive target, seemed to have his soul pulled out of his body at this time. He was lost and stared at Song Qingyuan blankly. After a long while, he came back to his senses and shouted, "Impossible! He must be putting on a show." Only by convincing himself like this could Mu Jihai ensure that he would not have a mental breakdown. Because if Song Qingyuan really cultivated the ice and fire invisible sword chi, it meant that he was not on the same level as Mu Jihai at all. Mu Jihai's hard work, competition, pride, and self-esteem all became a joke. Moreover, it was a bad joke that could not make people laugh. It would only make people feel pity and even disdain. However, Song Qingyuan was destined to give Mu Jihai a heavy blow today. The pressure brought by Tiny Tot forced him to not dare to hold back at all. He directly took out his trump card. After confirming that Song Qingyuan had displayed the ice and fire invisible sword chi, a Yuanying ancestor of the Tianqi sect said decisively, "He won." Chao Wei looked at the hidden dragon pot calmly and nodded slightly. If it was not for this move, he would not be confident that Song Qingyuan would have a 60% chance of winning. This was not only his confidence in his disciple, but also Chao Wei's confidence in himself. In the hidden dragon pot, Song Qingyuan pointed at the center of his eyebrows. Endless frost froze his whole body, as if he had turned into an ancient iceberg. In the next moment, the top of the ice mountain shattered with a loud bang. Like a volcanic eruption, endless flames and lava spewed out from the top of the mountain towards the sky. The iceberg continued to evaporate, and the raging flames danced in the air. Both of them quickly turned into 2 streams of smoke, one red and one blue. Then, the 2 streams of smoke merged into one and disappeared in the air, as if they had disappeared into thin air. The blue sky and clear water in the hidden dragon pot remained the same. Song Qingyuan's spell had disappeared without a trace, as if it had never existed. However, not to mention the little guy inside the hidden dragon pot, even the spectators outside the pot could faintly feel that within the vast heaven and earth inside the pot, there was a powerful energy fluctuation. It was as if the end of the world was coming, causing people to feel fear in their hearts. It could not be seen, it could not be touched, it was formless, and it was without a trace. But you knew that the terrifying power really existed. Perhaps in the next moment, it would appear by your side and take your life, and you would not even be able to dodge or defend. The little guy's gaze slightly congealed as he looked at the nearby Song Qingyuan, who had a calm expression. The two of them looked at each other just like that. Although they were only a few feet apart, the little guy could feel that before he could get close to Song Qingyuan, the invisible sword aura that densely covered the space would kill him first. Although he could not see or feel the exact location of the sword aura, the little guy was still vigilant. Unless it's a top early-stage Yuanying cultivator like Crown Prince Chongyun, with his sword art, he might be able to defeat an ordinary early-stage Yuanying cultivator. If he has the help of his Yuanying magic tool, the Ice Soul Cold Light Mirror, he might even be able to kill an early-stage Yuanying cultivator. The little guy suddenly smiled. Unfortunately, it can't do anything to me. His small body walked towards Song Qingyuan step by step with a leisurely expression. Wind and thunder surged around his body and finally gathered above his head, surging nonstop before disappearing. In the little guy's eyes, there were countless rays of light flashing. At first, there were only storms and thunder, but later on, heaven and earth, water and fire, mountains and swamps, and the 8 trigrams rose and fell one after another. Creation opened up, and endless Tao was born. On top of the little guy's head, the wind and thunder disappeared, and in its place was a chaotic starry sky, as if it was the most primitive, newly created universe. At this moment, the little guy's gaze was no longer on Song Qingyuan, but on the empty space in the distance. Only Zhu Yi, who was outside the hidden dragon pot, knew that the little guy's gaze was actually on him. The little guy's voice was low as he muttered to himself, "Second senior brother, you have a magnificent article that can shake the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries, but I also have my own mysterious yellow 4-word formula." As the little guy walked forward, a cold light flashed in Song Qingyuan's eyes. With a sword art in his right hand, the entire space in the hidden dragon pot trembled, and the surface of the hidden dragon pot lit up with the light of a defensive restriction. There was no sound, no fluctuation of magic power, and not a trace of anything in the air. However, everyone could feel that there was a terrifying force being led by Song Qingyuan, attacking towards the little guy. The little guy finally turned his head at this time. Silently looking at Song Qingyuan, he raised his palm and suddenly clenched it in the air. Space! Following the little guy's light shout, the space around him swayed, and layers of space folded together like a sparkling wall. In these folds of space, one could vaguely feel an invisible force moving restlessly, like a trapped beast, but unable to break free. The little guy walked forward and said in a long voice, "Up and down, the 4 directions called space, the vast heaven and earth, the infinite space, all under control." As the little guy walked forward step by step, chanting word by word, a vast and boundless force that filled the 4 directions of the heaven and earth suppressed down. Even if Song Qingyuan's sword qi was invisible and formless, it was still suppressed to the point that it could not move. There was a sword intent in the space, emitting a silent wail. That was the sword intent of Song Qingyuan's ice and fire invisible sword qi. Under the suppression of the little guy, it was like a dragon trapped in shallow water and no longer had its former glory. Song Qingyuan's complexion changed greatly. He had to use all of his strength to display the ice and fire twin sword qi. Right now, his sword intent was being suppressed by the little guy, and even his own essence energy was being suppressed. He could only struggle in vain. At this moment, Song Qingyuan's usual calmness had completely disappeared. Within his sinister facial features, there was a faint trace of panic. He never thought that, even after using the ice and fire invisible sword qi, he would still not be the little guy's opponent. This was completely beyond his imagination. And at this moment, the little guy had already arrived in front of him, his calm gaze carrying an unquestionable domineering aura. The disciples of our generation of Xianmen Tianzong, those who can compete with us, will always only be our own senior and junior brothers. The rest are all insignificant. Xiao Budian looked at Song Qingyuan and suddenly smiled. After that, he smashed out with his fist and directly blasted Song Qingyuan flying. The hidden dragon pot's protective barrier was activated at the same time, protecting Song Qingyuan, but at the same time, it also announced his failure. The heavenly pool sex cultivators outside the pot were dead silent at this moment. All of them had cultivated for thousands of years, but at this moment, a feeling of helplessness rose in their hearts at the same time. They really wanted to see their sect master Chao Wei, hoping that their sect master could give them something to rely on and eliminate their feeling of weakness and powerlessness, but they did not dare to. Reason told them that they must not provoke Chao Wei at this time. They would pay attention to Chao Wei's feelings, but the others would not. The scene of the spell conference was faintly in chaos, and everyone could see the shocked expression in the eyes of others. The little guy's previous performance made everyone think that there was a big gap between him and Zhu Yi, But now it seemed that, not considering the fact that Zhu Yi had just advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir, the little guy's strength was not weaker than Zhu Yi's at all. Zhao Yin said dumbfoundedly, that is the power to control space? Although it is still immature, it contains a mysterious concept that even Yuanian cultivators may not be able to understand, right? Tao Yaoyao's expression was extremely solemn, but she did not answer Zhao Yan's question. The strength of Xianmin Tianzong's disciple once again shocked everyone. Chao Wei stared at the hidden dragon pot expressionlessly, as if he had turned into a statue. On behalf of my disciple, I thank Sect Master Chao for your generosity, Lin Feng said with a smile. You are welcome to come again for a similar bet. You're welcome to come often. There are still 2 more matches left. Sect Master Chao, are you interested in 2 more rounds? Oh, that's right, before that. I'd like to ask Sect Leader Chao to clear the bet first. I remember Sect Leader Chao saying that you're a person who doesn't like to put things on credit. It just so happens that I'm such a person as well. Chao Wei finally moved. He turned around and stared fixedly at Lin Feng. After taking a deep breath, he said in a low voice, if I'm willing to bet, I'm willing to lose. My Tianqi sect can afford to lose. At the side, he thought of northern militant Zhuoxian prince's laughter. Don't forget my Lung Hua Yu mirror. Although Huishou did not say anything, he was standing there, so Chao Wei could not ignore him. At this moment, even with Chao Wei's thousands of years of cultivation, anger surged up, and he had the urge to spit out blood. Venerable Flowing Light's expression was solemn. Without saying a word, he threw the stone tablet with the mark of the little Shang sword to Lin Feng. Venerable Gambling Zhuge Guang also gave a bitter smile and handed over his 8 meridian blood ginseng. Chao Wei's pair of flying snow feathers carried the bipolar heaven flower from the Tianqi mountain and would not arrive for a while. But Lin Feng had already earned a lot. When Xiao Budian and Song Qingyuan came out of the hidden dragon pot together and wanted him to fulfill the bet and hand over the ice soul cold light mirror, Song Qingyuan, who had a gloomy expression, almost fainted from anger. If it was not for the attention of the crowd, Song Qingyuan would definitely fight to the death with Xiao Budian. Even if he could not win, he would run. No matter what was said, he would not hand over the ice soul cold light mirror. This was no different from digging out his own penis. But with Lin Feng, Chao Wei, and a group of primordial spirit experts pressing down on him, Song Qingyuan could only helplessly hand over the magic tool. His eyes were filled with grief and despair like a young girl who had been gang-raped by hundreds of burly men over 1,000 times. Xiao Budian honestly and bluntly took the ice soul cold light mirror. After looking at it, he smiled at Zhu Yi and said, Second senior brother, now, I have 2 Yuanian stage magic tools? Zhu Yi gave a non-committal smile. Xiao Budian's next words made Song Qingyuan, who was already grieving, so angry that he directly vomited blood. This business is very good. Second senior brother, when you compete in a while, why don't you bet with Princess Xingyan? When these words came out, everyone in the Great Qin dynasty, including the 3 primordial spirit experts, darkened their faces. Chapter 334. Zhu Yi smiled at Xiao Budian's suggestion, but did not say a word. The people of the Qin dynasty did not say a word either. Sect fellow, sure, please. Zhu Yi cupped his fists towards Shi Xingyun, who was standing in the distance. He then took the lead and walked towards the hidden dragon pot. Shi Xingyun's gaze moved between him and Xiao Budian. Suddenly, she smiled and shook her head. I admit defeat in this match. Everyone was shocked by her words. Although they knew that Zhu Yi was powerful, Shi Xingyun had shown that he was not completely powerless. Yet, he admitted defeat just like that. This immediately caused a lot of discussion. What was especially difficult for some people to accept was that Shi Xingyun's admission of defeat was equivalent to sending Zhu Yi to the finals. On the other side of the finals was Xiao Budian, who was also from Xianmin Tianzong. Just like when they were in the foundational stage, Xianmin Tianzong had secured the title of champion in advance. Regardless of who won between Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi, Xianmin Tianzong would definitely win first place. The disciples of Xianmin Tianzong had once again turned the Dharma assembly into an internal competition. Furthermore, what was even more embarrassing than when they were in the foundational stage was that during the Golden Elixir period, only 2 disciples from Xianmin Tianzong participated in the competition. Later on, these 2 would meet in the finals, and the rest would be chased away. However, there were also people who saw through the trick. After Xiao Budian had displayed his true strength, the situation had become extremely delicate for Shi Xingyun. Even if she used all of her methods and used all of her strength, along with a bit of luck to defeat Zhu Yi, she, who had already used up too much energy, did not have much of a chance of winning against a little guy who was waiting for her exhausted self in the finals. The first place still belonged to the little guy, and it belonged to the mysterious Gate Heavenly Sect. Defeating Zhu Yi and breaking the undefeated legend of Xianmin Tianzong was indeed an honor. Judging from the strength displayed by the disciples of Xianmin Tianzong in this year's Dharma Assembly, this honor was not inferior to the title of champion. However, the question was Zhu Yi really that easy to defeat? Others might not be aware of it, but Shi Xingyun was well aware of it. The reason for this was because Shi Xingyun knew his brother, Crown Prince Chongyun's strength very well. The outcome of the battle between Cloud traversing Peak's Crown Prince Chongyun and Xiao Yin was actually rather controversial. As a result, Crown Prince Chongyun's nascent soul realm magic item was destroyed, which meant that he had suffered a great loss. But at that time, after Xiao Yin released that shocking attack of True Fire Fusion, he had actually already used up all of his mana, and he was practically a lamp that had run out of oil. Crown Prince Chongyun flew into a rage out of humiliation and used the evil Shadow Sword. Actually, he lost his cool and gave Lin Feng a chance to intervene. Under the protection of the Flame Dragon Heavenly Armor, Xiao Yan's arcane energy was replenished, and he even had the ability to continue fighting. If Crown Prince Chongyun had not used the evil Shadow Sword, Xiao Yan would not have been able to deal with his next attack. Even so, Xiao Yan could be proud of himself for being able to defeat Crown Prince Chongyun, a top-notch early Yuanine period cultivator, with his Golden Elixir period cultivation. It was difficult for Shi Xingyun to determine who was stronger between Xiao Yin and Zhu Yi. However, by observing the difference in strength between Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, Shi Xingyun had a rough idea. Xiao Yin was at the early Golden Elixir period when he fought with Crown Prince Chongyun, but Zhu Yi was already at the middle Golden Elixir period. Shi Xingyun appeared humble and polite, but she had her own pride. She would not belittle herself, but she knew that it was not impossible for her to defeat Zhu Yi, but it would expose her biggest secret. If she were to fight Zhu Yi without exposing her biggest secret, she would most likely lose. However, if Zhu Yi wanted to defeat her, he would have to pay a higher price in energy. The odds of winning are slim, and it's not an unavoidable fight to the death. It's not worth it to force it. Shi Xingyun explained to Shi Shaoqian. Besides, I'd also like to see what kind of sparks will be created between the 2 senior brothers, Xianmin Tianzong. Even Prince Anliang, Shi Zongyue, could not easily refute Shi Xingyun's decision. However, Shi Zongyue knew Shi Xingyun well. Although Shi Zongyue's explanation could convince Shi Shaoqian, he could not accept it. Shi Zongyue looked at Shi Xingyun. Shi Xingyun smiled and shook her head gently. Shi Zongyue vaguely thought of something and sighed inwardly. He slowly said, "My great Qin forfeits this match." The hall was silent for a moment. Then it became noisy. The 2 contestants for the finals had been decided. Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, who were both from Xianmin Tianzong, would compete for the title of champion in the Golden Elixir period. The crowd was already numb. Just like Mu Jihai and Song Qingyuan, when there was still hope to catch up, people would feel jealousy and resentment and try to replace the gap. However, when the gap between the 2 parties was so huge that it made people feel hopeless, they would no longer feel jealousy and hatred. Instead, they would feel admiration and respect. Since the beginning of the Dharma Assembly, Lin Feng's disciples had refreshed people's understanding of them time and time again. The legend of Xuanmin's disciples being invincible in fights of the same realm had been firmly engraved in their hearts. They could not even feel doubtful. This was because anyone who doubted them would be slapped in the face by Tiny Tot, Wang Lin, and the others. Their faces were red and swollen like a pig's head. The crowd looked at Tiny Tot and the others with complicated gazes. All sorts of emotions were intertwined. However, when they looked at Lin Feng, their gazes were all filled with reverence. Even the Yuanning ancestors were no exception. It was this young man in purple who had a calm expression. He had single-handedly created Xianmen Tianzong, which was like the rising sun in the east, and shocked the world. Up until now, not counting Wang Lin's forfeit in the Foundation Establishment Stage Finals, Xianmen Tianzong's disciples who participated in the Dharma Assembly had only lost a total of one match. That was Yang Qing losing to her senior apprentice, Sister Yu Hongyan. Apart from this, the Xuanmen's disciples had never tasted defeat. In the end, the only ones able to defeat Xianmen Tianzong's disciples were his own senior apprentice brothers. And following that, there would immediately be another Xianmen Tianzong disciple defeated. But what made everyone speechless was that no matter who won or lost, the victor would still be Xianmen Tianzong's senior apprentice brothers. Based on the situation, it should still be Zhu Yi's victory, right? The Celerita's sword sex, Zhao Yin lightly sighed. Although sure Tianhao is strong, he is still at the golden elixir initial stage cultivation, while Zhu Yi is already at the golden elixir middle stage. Although he just advanced, looking at his appearance, he clearly doesn't have a period of weakness. Instead, his condition has reached his peak. Tao Yaoyao nodded her head. What you said is correct. Xianmen Tianzong's disciples. Every time they advance a small realm, their cultivation will have an earth-shattering growth. Zhu Yi at the golden elixir middle stage versus Shi Tianhao at the golden elixir initial stage has an enormous advantage. The crowd in the venue once again became lively. Everyone was very interested in who was stronger and who was weaker between the two Xianmen Tianzong brothers. But overall, everyone was optimistic about Zhu Yi. The strength that the two displayed when they were at the golden elixir initial stage could basically be said to be on par. But now that Zhu Yi had successfully advanced to the golden elixir middle stage, his chances of winning naturally increased greatly. Just as everyone was discussing, Xiao Budian looked at Zhu Yi and suddenly smiled. When Xiao Budian's smile fell into the eyes of the bystanders, they instantly felt a sense of trepidation. Zhu Yi slightly frowned and said, "Little junior brother, it is already difficult for you to advance from the golden elixir middle stage to the golden elixir late stage. Now that you're trying to be happy, when you cross the Yin-Win tribulation, the difficulty will be even greater." Xiao Budian smiled and said, "I understand second senior brother's good intentions, but I firmly believe that I can walk through it." At this time, Lin Feng lightly said, "Go ahead and do it. The rest will be arranged by Master." As he spoke, Lin Feng flicked his finger and a purple gas flew out, enveloping Xiao Budian inside. Seeing this, Shi Zheng'e, Dao Venerable Blue Thunder, and the other Origin Spirit Realm experts slightly raised their brows. Sect Master Lin, could it be? Without needing Lin Feng to answer, they saw Xiao Budian sitting cross-legged in the center of the purple gas small world, absorbing endless spiritual energy into his body. Xiao Budian's golden elixir ninth orifice was in the Xiantian realm. With a breath, a faint green smoke suddenly flew out from the golden elixir. A yin fire burned from the Yongquan acupoint at the bottom of his feet and instantly engulfed his entire body. Yin fire tribulation. The magic assembly was absolutely silent. Everyone was dumbstruck as they looked at the little guy. This little guy is actually going to cross the Yin flame tribulation and advance to the middle stage of the golden course stage. Right now, right here, countless people were confused. Usually, golden elixir cultivators were extremely cautious, and some even feared the Yin fire tribulation. But when it came to Xianmen Tianzong's disciples, they actually didn't care about it at all. Zhu Yi could say that he had an epiphany after the battle with Jiao Junshin and broke through the bottleneck, but Xiao Budian did it as he wished. It was as if he treated the tribulation as a trivial matter. It was as if he didn't usually think about it, but he suddenly remembered it today and did it today. Or perhaps he didn't do it usually because he didn't need it, but now that he needed it, he did it. It seemed that in Xiao Budian's view, advancing to the golden elixir middle stage only depended on whether he wanted to or not. It wasn't difficult at all. At this moment, all the golden elixir period cultivators, including some Yuaniing ancestors, had the urge to cry. Since when was it so easy to undergo the fire tribulation? Was it because the way I went through the tribulation was wrong? Lin Feng looked at this scene and faintly smiled, saying in his heart, only Xiao Budian can do this. Xiao Budian's 9 apertures golden elixir would naturally expel the impurities in the golden elixir when he cultivated and breathed in and out spiritual energy. Therefore, the fire tribulation was almost not difficult for him. It was only to lay a solid foundation that he didn't go through the tribulation. Because for Xiao Budian, the real difficulty was the wind tribulation to advance from the golden elixir middle stage to the golden elixir late stage. For this, he must prepare early and be careful from the beginning. However, this kind of thing was only known by a few people. Outsiders were completely unaware. All they could see was that Xiao Budian almost instantly passed the fire tribulation as if he was walking on flat ground. After Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian also successfully advanced to the golden elixir middle stage, crossing a hurdle that many people might not be able to overcome in their lifetime. Shi Zongyue and other big shots also had dignified expressions. They didn't pay attention to how easy it was for Xiao Budian to pass the tribulation. Thousands of years had allowed them to see too many geniuses, and they could always maintain a normal state of mind. What made these essence soul powerhouses concerned was that after Xiao Budian advanced to the golden elixir middle stage, he was like Zhu Yi. He casually extracted spiritual energy from heaven and earth and turned it into an 8 trigrams image. Chapter 335. Shi Zongyue and the other primordial spirit experts all had serious expressions as they watched the little guy extract the spiritual energy from the heaven and earth to form the 8 trigrams. Generally speaking, most of the Tao techniques that cultivators practiced were of a single attribute. After advancing to the middle stage of the golden elixir, the amount of spiritual energy that could be extracted from nature was also usually limited to only one type. There were some superior Tao techniques that could allow one to comprehend more than one type of concept after cultivating. Extracting spiritual energy from nature would no longer be limited to one type. For example, the Great Qin Dynasty's 5 Emperors True Dragon Secret Technique. If all 5 types of Tao techniques were cultivated to the peak of the golden elixir, one would be able to extract the 5 elements of spiritual energy from the heaven and earth and form the 5 elemental true dragons. They would be able to control the 5 types of spiritual energy of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. However, regardless of whether it was the little guy or Zhu Yi, they were both able to extract 8 types of spiritual energy from nature and form the 8 trigrams. If this kind of heaven-defying method only appeared on one person, then it would still be understandable, as it could be due to this person's innate talent. However, the two of them were exactly the same. There was only one explanation, and that was that this was caused by the Tao techniques that they practiced. What kind of terrifying Tao technique secret technique is this? Glorious Sun, sword venerable sighed, with a somewhat frightened expression. Flowing Light, sword venerable, said hesitantly, back then, when Xianmen, Tianzong's eldest disciple, Xiao Yin, advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir on our cloud travel peak, there was no such scene. He simply extracted a huge amount of fire attribute spiritual energy and turned it into endless raging flames. A flash of realization appeared in his eyes. That's right, the amount of fire attribute spiritual energy he mobilized was abnormal. There was not that much fire attribute spiritual energy on the cloud travel peak for him to extract. That was because he converted all the other types of spiritual energy into fuel for the flames. Thinking of this, flowing light, Sword Venerable's expression became somewhat complicated. Every primordial spirit expert present had a complicated expression as well. The cultivation of the middle stage of the golden elixir was not worth mentioning to them. However, the potential and power displayed by Xianmin Tianzong's Tao Technique manual made them pay attention to it. The primordial spirit experts all looked towards Lin Feng without saying a word. The impact this time was even more shocking than the strong performance of the disciples of the celestial sect of wonders. Even if Xianmin Tianzong was not a talented person, with such top-notch mystical Tao techniques and supernatural powers, his rise would still be unstoppable. Lin Feng didn't need to look at Shi Zongyue and the others. He only needed to look at his personal and overall reputation points in the system to know how shocked they were at this moment. Lin Feng looked at Tiny Tot and Zhu Yi with gratification. Good, very good. Both of you are in the middle stage of the golden elixir. Good disciples, work harder and cultivate to the late stage of the golden elixir. Master has even better Tao techniques to impart to you. The 8 trigrams Great Tao Scripture of the Heavens is just the beginning. Lin Feng withdrew his magic power and dispersed the small purple world. The little guy walked out from within and let out a long breath. He looked at Zhu Yi and calmly smiled. Second senior brother, please advise me. Zhu Yi also smiled slightly. Little junior brother, please. The atmosphere between the two of them was quite harmonious, but the faces of the people of the Celestial Pool sect were as dark as the bottom of a pot. From a moment Tiny Tot began to cross the Een Fire Tribulation to reach the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm, most of the Celestial Pool sect cultivators looked like they wanted to eat someone. After seeing that scene, Song Qingyuan's face was even more ashen. This was because it meant that Tiny Tot still didn't use his full strength when he fought with him until he defeated him in the end. He would only use his full strength when fighting with the second senior brother. He didn't need to fight with Song Qingyuan at all. From the beginning to the end, even if it involved a shocking gamble, Tiny Tot didn't really treat Song Qingyuan as an opponent of the same level. This discovery made Song Qingyuan and the group of Celestial Pool sect cultivators so depressed that they wanted to go crazy, but they couldn't say anything. This was because it had been proven that Tiny Tot did not need to use all his strength when fighting with Song Qingyuan, and he could still win. This was what made the Celestial Pool sect cultivators feel the most vexed and Song Qingyuan feel dejected. Even the Celestial Pool sect's sect master, Chao Wei, was expressionless at this moment, but his eyes were filled with anger, and he felt extremely vexed. Other than the Celestial Pool sect cultivators, the others looked at Tiny Tot and Zhu Yi and were excited. They originally thought that there was no suspense in the final battle, and that Zhu Yi was destined to win. Who knew that things would take a turn? Tiny Tot had also successfully advanced to the middle stage of the Golden Elixir realm. Moreover, looking at the way he transcended the Een Fire Tribulation, he seemed to be even more relaxed than Zhu Yi. After transcending the tribulation and advancing, he did not have the slightest period of weakness, but reached a peak state that he had never reached before. This caused the final battle for first place to be filled with suspense once again. Everyone wanted to see exactly which of these 2 senior and junior brothers would come out on top. Watching Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot walk towards the hidden dragon pot, Lin Feng suddenly flung his sleeve, and a young man in purple clothes landed on the ground. It was Wang Lin, who had a new understanding of Tao after his battle with Dao Yuding and had gone into closed-door training under Lin Feng's protection. Lin Feng smiled and said, "Little Lin, you came out of closed-door training at just the right time. You can make it to the last and most exciting match." Wang Lin looked at the back of Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot, his eyes flashing. Second senior brother and little junior brother are competing for the first place in the Golden Elixir period? After saying this, Wang Lin did not speak anymore and looked seriously at the hidden dragon pot. For him, watching this match would be a great harvest. Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, Tuntin, and Zhuge Fengling all quietened down and looked at the hidden dragon pot. But when their gazes flashed across Wang Lin, they all had a strange feeling. Wang Lin's cultivation level was clearly still at the early foundation establishment stage, But compared to before he went into closed-door training, he had undergone an earth-shattering change. Is it an illusion? Doubt rose in the hearts of the four at the same time, but they all shook their heads in unison. Tuntin, who had the highest cultivation level, deliberately looked at Wang Lin. He's definitely very different from before. Wang Lin's appearance was just a small interlude. Everyone's attention was still focused on Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot. The two entered the hidden dragon pot together. Tiny Tot smiled and spread out his hands. Second senior brother, it's the same as always. When fighting with you, I will definitely make the first move. While speaking, Tiny Tot suddenly stomped his foot and shot toward Zhu Yi like an arrow leaving the bow. Tiny Tot's words reminded Zhu Yi of the scene a long time ago when a few of them fought for the first time. At that time, Yu Hongyan and Yang Qing had yet to enter the foundation establishment stage, while he, Tiny Tot, and Xiao Yan had just established their foundation establishment stage. At that time, Tiny Tot was in such a hurry. In the end, when both sides were evenly matched, Zhu Yi had made use of his impatience to win. The scene in front of him seemed to replay, but Zhu Yi knew that his junior brother would not make the same mistake a second time. Therefore, Zhu Yi's response strategy also changed. He was no longer slowly contending with Tiny Tot to wear down his patience and drive, but to meet him head-on. Zhu Yi took a deep breath, and his body glowed brightly. Countless rays of light intertwined in the space of the hidden dragon pot, forming a huge mandala flower. Radiant mandala. In the center of the mandala flower, there was a faint shadow of light. Its hands formed a seal, and it sat cross-legged. From it, there was a feeling of being able to control immeasurable light, and it was filled with wisdom and enlightenment, immovable and immortal Buddhist concepts. Unlike others, as fellow disciples, Zhu Yi and Tiny Tot had a very deep understanding of each other. Both sides had some trump cards, and they were well aware. If they wanted to win, they had to bring out some new things. Zhu Yi learned from Lin Feng the essence of one of the great Thunder Temple's supreme scriptures of the past, the Infinite Light Relai Sutra. Normally, he would merge the concept of the power of light into his Tao technique, the 8 trigrams book of the Great Tao of the Heavens. But right now, he displayed this Buddhist technique by itself. The radiant mandala emitted immeasurable light. It was everlasting, and all evils avoided it. It isolated all enemies from the light. Tiny Tot rushed in front of the radiant mandala and was immediately blocked. Seeing this, Tiny Tot couldn't help but laugh. The infinite light Buddha scripture is indeed extraordinary, but it may not be comparable to our sect's 8 trigrams Great Tao scripture. Second senior brother, you want to win by surprise, but you are neglecting the essentials. While speaking, Tiny Tot raised his right fist, and the majestic power of wind and thunder condensed on his right arm. The two powers surged unceasingly, transforming into each other and growing endlessly. However, they immediately collapsed, triggering a power that could destroy heaven and earth. Tiny Tot's fist blasted out. It was the double pole hammer of the 8 trigrams collapsing heaven hammer. Tiny Tot, who had advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir, extracted the wind and thunder spirit energy from the hidden dragon pot and added it to his iron fist. This double pole hammer was many times more powerful than when he fought with Song Qingyuan. His fist heavily smashed onto the radiant mandala, and it was as if he was swinging a 1,000-gene iron hammer to strike an exquisite porcelain. Although the radiant mandala's defensive power was astonishing, it still couldn't block Tiny Tot's fist that seemed like it could shatter space. It directly shattered into streaks of light, no longer existing. However, although the radiant mandala shattered into streaks of light, it did not disperse. Streaks of light surrounded Tiny Tot. At the same time, countless black threads appeared out of thin air. They ingeniously combined with the bright streaks of light, instantly transforming into a huge black and white altar. Tiny Tot was directly placed inside the altar, as if he was in an independent little universe. In front of him, the dark space flickered with groups of stars, and it was as brilliant as a river of stars. Light and darkness mandala great heavenly barrier. Zhu Yi's voice, transmitted from the river of stars. Junior brother's words are reasonable. I naturally know about this kind of thing. Junior brother, do you think I'm the kind of person who neglects the essentials? It's just that those who fight must fight from the right side and combine the strange. Combining the strange and the correct is the way to victory. As he spoke, Tiny Tot could feel that Zhu Yi's light and darkness mandala great heavenly barrier was beginning to rapidly shrink and collapse with Tiny Tot as the center. All of the power was collapsing and compressing towards the point where Tiny Tot was standing. The little world formed by the barrier was rapidly heading towards destruction. It was precisely Zhu Yi's manipulation of the light and darkness mandala great heavenly barrier, imitating the power of the world's destruction. If it were to erupt at this time, with Tiny Tot's current cultivation, he could only die with a grievance. Space. Tiny Tot's expression was calm, and he did not panic. He raised his little fist above his head, and the black-yellow four-word formula space formula was already activated. Immediately, a vast and majestic power pervaded the air, filling the entire light and darkness great barrier. It was as if there were countless pillars that supported a dangerous building that was about to collapse, making it as stable as Mount Tai. Chapter 336. Xiao Budian used his own universe formula, instantly suppressing the small universe within the mandala heaven's great barrier of light and darkness, preventing it from collapsing. Even Zhu Yi, the creator of the light and darkness barrier, couldn't continue to control the barrier to collapse. Zhu Yi frowned slightly. Before he could react, Xiao Budian had already made a new move. Within the mandala heaven's barrier, Xiao Budian's fists collided in front of his chest. From between his fists, ripples spread out one after another. The entire space within the barrier shook because of this, and lines that were clearly visible to the naked eye appeared in the space like ripples on water. This was the concept of power that Xiao Budian had comprehended from the spatial sound waves produced after the yellow heaven bell hammer struck the bronze void cauldron. After combining it with his own universe formula, it formed a variant of the universe formula. The spatial ripples continued to shake. Different from Zhu Yi's light and darkness barrier collapsing from the outside to the inside, the barrier at this moment was being attacked from the inside. It instantly tottered and collapsed. Xiao Budian's universe formula swept out, directly shattering Zhu Yi's light and darkness barrier. A strange light flashed in Zhu Yi's eyes. This was the first time someone had destroyed the entire great barrier of light and darkness mandala heavens since he had cultivated it. Although he already knew that his little junior brother was extraordinary, he could only truly understand it after personally exchanging blows with him. Zhu Yi nodded slightly with a calm expression. With a light clap of his hands, he continuously extracted all kinds of spiritual energy from the heavenly passage in the dragon concealing kettle and mixed them in front of him. Finally, it formed a new small world, trapping Xiao Budian, who had just escaped from the mandala heaven's barrier. Xiao Budian raised his eyebrows and looked up. The stars in the sky fell to the ground, turning into a burning meteor shower that smashed towards Xiao Budian's head. Looking down, the earth was crisscrossed, and huge cracks appeared, as if a huge abyssal mouth was about to swallow Xiao Budian. The flood attacked, and turbid waves overflowed into the heavens as they surged and roared. The raging inferno transformed into a boundless sea of flames, surrounding the little guy in the center. The howling hurricanes were shockingly black in color. They were like huge pitch-black dragons as they weaved and danced in the sky. At the same time, lightning and thunder continuously tore apart the dark clouds and hacked toward the little guy. The majestic mountain was completely shattered, and with the power to collapse the heavens, it fell towards the little guy with the intention of crushing him underneath. The ground beneath his feet was surrounded by countless cracks, and the only place he could stand on became a bottomless quagmire that wanted to drag the little guy inside. In this small world, heaven and earth were overturned, water and fire interweaved, wind and thunder gathered, and mountains and lakes were overturned. The entire world seemed as if it was welcoming the end of the world. Countless calamities and dangers emerged in an endless stream as they surged towards the little guy like a tide. If it's in terms of understanding and comprehension of our sex Tao art, then second senior brother could be said to be second to none. The little guy laughed heartily without fear. However, if you want to say that these things can do anything to me, second senior brother is looking down on me too much. As he spoke, wind and thunder surged all over the little guy's body, and he directly transformed into a 2-meter-tall wind and thunder demon god. His fists struck the hurricanes and thunder, and his feet stepped on the raging inferno and flood. He walked through the deep chasm on the ground as if he was walking on flat ground, and turned a blind eye to the meteors and fiery rain smashing down from the sky. The mountains that were falling towards him were directly smashed into pieces by his fists. Not a single one of these natural disasters could do anything to the little guy. As the little guy walked forward, every step he took caused this small world to tremble. In the end, the blood and energy of the little guy's entire body surged crazily like a blazing sun, illuminating this part of the world. At this time, Zhu Yi's calm and gentle voice transmitted from within the space. "I naturally won't look down on you." Before he finished speaking, one black and one white strand of magic power suddenly appeared within the small world and merged into the world. At first, the little guy didn't notice anything abnormal, but he quickly discovered that this small world created by Zhu Yi's magic power actually had an extra bit of something different. There was an extra day and night. The power of light transformed into day, and the power of darkness transformed into night. Day and night continuously alternated, and this small world actually seemed to possess the concept of time. The time here was completely different from the time in the outside world. In practically only a breath's worth of time, day and night had already alternated once. It was so fast that it was too much for the eyes to take in. If one was slightly distracted, several days and nights would have already passed. This actually didn't matter. To the little guy, the most terrible thing was that the attacks of the wind, thunder, water, volcano, and swamp needles in this small world also became faster. It was so fast that the little guy almost couldn't react. Without waiting for him to come back to his senses, the lower half of his body was already buried deep within the earth. The surging floodwaters immediately covered his head, and his head was smashed by the meteors that filled the sky until he became dizzy and disoriented. As soon as he broke free, he was once again struck by the chain of lightning and endless hurricanes, sending him flying back to the ground. He fell head first into the swamp and was immediately surrounded by raging flames, burning him badly. Second senior brother's technique can actually control time. The little guy urged himself to calm down. He first used all of his strength to protect himself, and used all of his strength to defend against the endless attacks from the outside world. While resisting, he thought in his heart, "No, it's not like that." Second senior brother didn't change the speed of the flow of time in this small world. The little guy was like a sandbag, allowing Zhu Yi's technique to bombard him. Suddenly, he loudly said, "Second senior brother, do you dare to open your mouth and say a word to me now?" There was a moment of silence in the air. There was only the whistling of endless storms, lightning, floods, and raging flames, but no one could hear Zhu Yi's reply. The little guy smiled and said, "Sure enough, you don't dare." At this time, Zhu Yi suddenly spoke with a bit of smile. "Not bad, you found out so quickly." His voice was fast and urgent, like a machine gun. The words were almost connected together, and the original pronunciation could not be heard clearly. It was completely unlike Zhu Yi's usual tone and speed of speech. The technique that Zhu Yi just used did not have the effect of speeding up, but on the contrary, slow down. It slowed down the little guy's reaction, or in other words, his perception of the speed of things around him. It was not that the speed of wind, thunder, water, and fire had become faster, nor was it that Zhu Yi's speed of speech had become faster, but the little guy's own reaction had become slower, so it seemed that other things had become faster. As the saying goes, The slightest difference makes a huge difference. In a battle, a little difference would cause a completely different result. The little guy's reaction was more than a beat slower, so he was naturally dizzy and disoriented by Zhu Yi's endless techniques. But as long as he knew the principle behind it, the little guy was no longer worried and revealed an incomprehensible smile on his face. However, the little guy did not launch a counterattack, but still allowed Zhu Yi to attack. He sat on the ground peacefully, and while defending with all his strength, the little guy's eyes flickered with brilliance, as if he was thinking about something. Seeing this scene, Zhu Yi could not help but frown slightly, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. Mysterious yellow, 4-word formula. Mysterious yellow, 4-word formula. Zhu Yi muttered to himself, and his expression suddenly changed slightly. Since there's a universe word formula, doesn't that mean? Just at this moment, the little guy suddenly laughed. Second senior brother, I still have to thank you. Previously, there were some areas that I could not figure out in the second word formula. But after being enlightened by you today, it has suddenly become clear. Amidst the laughter, the little guy suddenly raised his hand and shouted, Universe! A grand concept of power was emitted from the little guy's body, pervading the small world created by Zhu Yi's magic power. Time seemed to have come to a standstill at this moment. The torrential flood stagnated in midair, and the surging flames suddenly became fixed. The collapsed mountains floated in the air, and one could still see the dust flying in the sky. The meteors that fell from above also stopped moving. The black hurricane and lightning in the sky were like a painting. In the next moment, the small world created by Zhu Yi's magic power collapsed with a loud bang, and the little guy walked out from it with a smile, his expression leisurely. Zhu Yi silently looked at the little guy and nodded. Little junior brother, your universe word formula is really amazing. You did not really stop the time of the entire world, but you fixed my magic power and divine sense, making it impossible to operate. Zhu Yi slowly said, but with time, when your cultivation becomes higher and higher, your understanding of the mysteries of time will become deeper and deeper, and you will finally have the great ability to stop the time of a part of the world. The little guy laughed. I still have to thank second senior brother for the inspiration from before. In the hidden dragon pot, the little guy looked at Zhu Yi, laughed, and said, Second senior brother, try taking another move from me. He put his palms together and shouted in a low voice, Universe! The universe word formula was activated again, but this time it was aimed at Zhu Yi himself. Being fixed by the little guy's universe word formula, Zhu Yi immediately felt as if his entire body had become a puppet, unable to move. He could not speak, could not move, and even the thoughts in his mind became slow. The 4 directions from top to bottom are called universe, and since ancient times it is called universe. Little junior brother's universe, word formula, is created by figuring out time. Zhu Yi felt that at this moment, even his soul seemed to be frozen, unable to move, and even his thoughts were about to stop. But he was not an ordinary person after all, and the more critical the situation, the calmer he was. Since ancient times it is called universe, little junior brother's universe. Word formula can only figure out the present and the past, but it can't control the infinite possibilities and constantly changing future. Zhu Yi's eyes suddenly became one black and one white, and then from the extreme darkness came an immeasurable amount of light, and from the extreme light came a deep darkness. The two powers reversed and fused, turning into words that interweaved light and darkness. And then a shocking article was written. When this article was published, it immediately shattered the little guy's universe, word formula, on Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi said silently, My path is to carry on the past and open up the future, to open up the infinite possibilities of the future, and the infinite and unknown future is not something that can be determined by time alone. Little junior brother, you can't stop me. As he said that glorious article pressed down on the little guy with an unstoppable momentum of creating the future. Is that so? Then come and try. The little guy was still not afraid. His two hands stretched out horizontally, and an astonishing mana fluctuation wreaked havoc in the hidden dragon pot. Chapter 337. Xiao Budian stretched out both of his hands. Two completely different yet closely connected concepts of power surged within the hidden dragon pot at the same time. The mysterious yellow four-word formula, universe and eon, both appeared at the same time. The four directions were called universe and eon. The combination of space and time, universe and eon, combined to form the most primitive world. The world created by Xiao Budian's magic power was more realistic and complete than the world created by Zhu Yi using the power of light and darkness and the power of the 8 trigrams. The power contained within was also more powerful. The hidden dragon pot began to shake. The silhouette of a long-bearded elder suddenly appeared in the sky of the world within the pot. He stared at Xiao Budian with a slightly surprised expression. This elder was the treasure spirit of the hidden dragon pot. This was the first time he had shown himself since the beginning of the assembly. Even he was startled by Xiao Budian's attack. This was because the world created by Xiao Budian actually collided with the hidden dragon pot's heavenly passage. The boundary of the two worlds constantly pressed against and rubbed against each other. Xiao Budian's universe and Ian combined attack directly suppressed the passage formed by Zhu Yi's light and darkness characters. Second senior brother, you have inherited the general trend of humanity. You have indeed opened up a new path. Xiao Budian's voice reverberated between heaven and earth like a great bell. However, humans still have to live in the world, in the universe. Silently, Zhu Yi looked at Xiao Budian without saying a word. Suddenly, he closed his eyes and dispersed all of his magic power. Even the passage formed by the light and darkness characters disappeared. Just like that, he calmly endured the suppression of Xiao Budian's universe and Ian. The hidden dragon pot's restriction was activated, announcing the final result of this pinnacle battle. At this moment, the spectators outside the hidden dragon pot all let out gasps of surprise. The battle between Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi was in full swing. The cultivators outside the pot were also intoxicated by it. However, it also made many people feel ashamed. Apart from Shi Xingyun and Tao Yaoyao, the other cultivators who participated in the golden elixir period before the assembly could not help but smile bitterly and shake their heads. This was a contest between fellow apprentices. Only now did they bring out their true abilities. Previously, they were just playing around. If they had used this strength in the previous Dharma assembly competition, almost no one would have been able to last a round against these two brothers. Everyone became calm at this moment. It really wasn't a coincidence that this pair of brothers could advance to the finals together. A monster from the celestial sect of wonders. As expected, it was better to leave it to another monster from his own sect to deal with. The group of Yuanying stage old ancestors all looked extremely solemn, because in front of them were two people who could no longer be measured by the golden elixir period. In front of them, the pride and superiority of Yuanying stage cultivators were nowhere to be found. Whether it was Xiao Budian or Zhu Yi, both of them had the strength to contend against and even defeat Yuanying stage cultivators. Early Yuanying stage cultivators who were weaker in actual combat might even die in their hands in a duel. At this moment, Xiao Budian came out of the dragon concealing pot. His expression was tranquil, and there was no ecstasy after winning. He suddenly faced the sky and let out a long cry, like the clear cry of a young phoenix. After the clear cry, Xiao Budian lowered his head and muttered to himself, "Little big bro, I'm going to find you soon." The hundreds of cultivators watching the battle outside the pot all had complicated expressions as they looked at Xiao Budian's small body. Their hearts were filled with mixed feelings, only a little over 10 years old. Although Xiao Budian's voice was not loud, it was enough for everyone present to hear. Before today, many people actually held a regretful attitude when mentioning Xiao Budian. Most people were not optimistic about him finding the famous dual-pupiled person for revenge in the future. This was because the dual-pupiled person had already become the most legendary young expert in the entire Heaven Primal world in recent years. He was destined to be recorded in the annals of history. After obtaining Xiao Budian's supreme spiritual platform, this person's starting point was much higher than Xiao Budian's. Even if Xiao Budian strived to catch up, people still did not think highly of him. However, from today onwards, everyone had the same thought in their hearts. That dual-pupiled youth is in trouble. Within the purple firmament Dao's camp, Li Kuei-yin looked at Xiao Budian. Her heart, that had always been tense, finally calmed down. This little guy was actually this strong to the point of surpassing everyone's imagination. Gu lay beside her, seriously nodded his head. That dual-pupiled person has an opponent now. Li Kuei-yin snorted. Serves them right. Who told them to do such wicked things back then? She paused for a moment and revealed a doubtful expression. Late-stage golden elixir cultivators can comprehend the mysteries of space after enduring the void lightning tribulation. However, their comprehension of time is extremely limited. This little guy is only at the middle stage of the golden elixir. Did he really comprehend the mysteries of time? Although it's only a very superficial bit, it is indeed so, Gu Lei slowly said. Xianmin Tianzong's Dao inheritance is truly terrifyingly powerful. Xiao Budian's Yin formula attracted the attention of more than one person. Royal sister, can Shi Tianhao's Yin formula really freeze time? Shi Shaoqian's expression was incomparably solemn. He was somewhat shocked by Xiao Budian's black-yellow four-words formula. Shi Xingyun slowly said, "That's right. Tianhao's Yin formula is a magical technique created after comprehending the mysteries of time. Currently, he is still unable to freeze the flow of time in the entire space. However, he can freeze the time of a person or an object. This is different from the Northern Militant Imperial Court's Divine Soul technique. It's different from the Night Nightmare Dark Prison technique that Sang Luoha used to deal with me. That Divine Soul technique only suppresses my Divine Soul and cuts off the connection between my Divine Soul and my physical body. It deprives me of the five senses of sight, hearing, smell, speech, and touch. However, my Divine Soul is free and I can think normally." Shi Xingyin glanced at Xiao Budian. On the other hand, Tianhao's magical technique can completely freeze the target's Divine Soul, causing time to stop on the spot. They can't even think. Those with a strong Divine Soul will have a stronger resistance. For example, Zhu Yi can still barely think and even use magical techniques. However, the speed of his Divine Soul will be greatly reduced. Shi Xingyun sighed. Even a Yuaning stage cultivator will be at least 50% slower if he is caught off guard and is frozen by Tianhao. Shi Shaoqian said, "Speaking of that Zhu Yi, it was quite an upset. Previously, everyone thought that he would win first place. Who would have thought that he would lose so easily in the end?" Shi Xingyin glanced at him and said lightly, "Shaoqian, you still have a lot to learn. Don't treat your own imagination as the truth, especially when there are many things you don't know." Shi Shaoqian was stunned. Before he could speak, he suddenly saw movement in the Hidden Dragon Pot. Under the protection of the Hidden Dragon Pot's restriction, Zhu Yi, who was safe and sound, did not follow Xiao Budian out of the Hidden Dragon Pot. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and closed his eyes silently. After a long time, Zhu Yi suddenly opened his eyes and began to write in the air with the fingers of his right hand. This time, he did not use the power of light and darkness to condense words. He only used his own magical power to write in the air, leaving one word after another in the air without dispersing. The beginning was the first paragraph of his earth-shattering article. However, after finishing the first paragraph, Zhu Yi did not stop writing. Instead, he continued to write, writing more words. The cultivators outside the pot were all shocked. Previously, when Zhu Yi fought with Jiao Junxin, he broke through his limits and wrote a magnificent chapter. However, he could only finish the first paragraph and could not continue. After that, when he fought with Xiao Budian, he only wrote a paragraph, which was why he was suppressed by Xiao Buddyin's space and time techniques. However, now, the second paragraph of the article had appeared in the world. Although he only used ordinary magical power to leave words in the air, and although the people present were not as scholarly as Jiao Junshin, they could still feel that after completing the second paragraph of Zhu Yi's article, it revealed a powerful artistic conception that surpassed everything. All obstacles, all shackles, all difficulties and obstacles were insignificant. They would eventually be surpassed. Enemies would be surpassed, difficulties would be surpassed, time would be surpassed, and the limits of the world would also be surpassed. Only the general trend of humanity would continue to move forward without any limits. Shi Shaoqian stared at the scene with his mouth agape. Shi Xingyun's voice rang in his ears. Do you understand now? When Zhu Yi faces Shi Tianhao's space and time techniques, it is indeed difficult to deal with. However, he will never give up and wait helplessly for death. Silently, he wants to feel the restraints and limits of the world and the universe on his principles, and finally create this path of transcendence. Now that Zhu Yi has completed the second paragraph of the article, if he were to fight with Shi Tianhao again, it would be his turn to break Shi Tianhao's space and time techniques. Shi Xingyun said faintly. However, it is undeniable that Shi Tianhao's victory in the previous match is still well-deserved. Zhu Yi walked out of the hidden dragon pot. Xiao Budyin turned his head, and the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Looking at the pair of brothers and recalling the battle that even Yuanying stage cultivators were terrified of, the venue suddenly fell silent. Countless people's eyes were focused on Lin Feng and the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong behind him. A sentence kept echoing in everyone's mind. In a battle of magical powers in the same realm, the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are invincible. This sentence was first uttered by Lin Feng before the battle in Sand Continent City before the opening ceremony. At the time, many people thought that he had lost his mind, but later on, everyone at the venue was speechless. Later on, when this sentence was spread by some of the people who were present, many people in the Divine Land also thought that Lin Feng was boasting. Before the start of the ceremony, everyone at the venue had the same thought. Now, however, reality had shown them how wrong they were. All the cultivators at the venue looked at Lin Feng, Xiao Budyin, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and the others, and suddenly felt like they were looking up to a great mountain. Even Shi Zongyue looked at Lin Feng with a complicated gaze. After a soft sigh, he calmly announced, "This year's desolate sea ceremony, the champion of the golden elixir period, Xianmen Tianzong, Shi Tianhao." Lin Feng faintly smiled and did not say anything. His mind entered the system and pulled out his reputation value to check. Chapter 338. Lin Feng entered the system to check his reputation value. According to the system display, in the northeast region of the Great Qin Dynasty where Yuzhou City and the Northwind Sea are located, Lin Feng's own personal reputation shot up overnight, already reaching 80 points. And Xianmen Tianzong's overall reputation in this region also reached 80 points. The increase was so violent that it was unprecedented, even more ferocious than the Shazhou City opening ceremony. After the Shazhou City opening ceremony, Xianmen Tianzong's overall sect reputation in the northern region of the Kunlun Mountains was only 75 points. What made Lin Feng even more happy was that the system displayed Xianmen Tianzong's overall sect reputation and potential value in the regions where their bases were located for all the major powers that participated in the spell assembly. Their overall sect reputation value also reached 70 points. As time passed, barring any accidents, the potential reputation value could be converted into actual current reputation value. Lin Feng's individual potential reputation value in these regions also reached 70 points. The only exception was the southeast region of the Great Qin Dynasty, where the Celeritas sword sect was located. Because he accompanied Xiao Yan to the Cloud Traversing Peak before, after the Battle of Cloud Traversing Peak, Lin Feng's individual reputation value, their soared to 80 points, and the overall sect reputation value was 70 points. On this basis, through the spell assembly's further increase, Lin Feng's individual reputation value and the overall sect reputation value in the southeast region of the Great Qin dynasty had risen to 85 and 80 points respectively. Just as I expected, Lin Feng chuckled like a fox that had stolen a chicken. Participating in this spell assembly not only raises the local reputation value of the place where the spell assembly is held, but all the major powers that participate in the spell assembly will also be affected, becoming assistants to help me spread and raise my reputation value. Of course, the prerequisite is that these kids perform well enough in the spell assembly. Now it looks like they really didn't disappoint me. Amidst his joy, Lin Feng was also looking at the main mission description, worldwide reputation value over 80. This worldwide reputation value didn't specify whether it is my personal reputation or the overall sect reputation value. However, according to Lin Feng's understanding of this deceptive system, the worldwide reputation mentioned in the mission description was definitely his personal reputation and the overall reputation of the sect. Both had to be at least 80 points. From this point of view, although the trip to the Wildernessy Dharma assembly could be considered successful, there was still a long way to go before he could truly complete the main mission. However, this Dharma assembly had indeed allowed him to take a big step forward on this path. Needless to say, Lin Feng and his disciples had gained quite a lot of good stuff from this Dharma assembly. When they entered the ancient desolate sea world later, he believed that they would gain even more. With their style, if they didn't rob them, it would be a waste of their good fortune. Other than the treasures that they won from the bet, there was also the compensation that Shi Zongyue and the others had given for the assassination of Tiny Tot. After the Dharma assembly competition officially ended, Dao Master Changle also sent it to Lin Feng. Thinking up to here, Lin Feng secretly frowned. Among the people who tried to assassinate the little guy, apart from the green-clothed nascent soul ancestor Zhao Exine and the gray-clothed old man who used the final killing move, Lin Feng only captured 3 of the other 4 Aurus Core stage cultivators, purposely letting one escape. He followed them with the Iron Tree clone, trying to catch a big fish with a long line. He wanted to see if he could find more clues to find the mastermind of the assassination. But now, it seemed that the other party had already made arrangements. After the Golden Elixir period cultivator escaped, he found a place to hide and did not contact the outside world. No one took the initiative to contact him. Lin Feng waited for him for a while, but he did not even find a person to kill. Lin Feng withdrew the Iron Tree clone and thought to himself, I left a mana imprint on this guy. When the time comes, I'll just wait and see. Not to mention that he's dead. As long as he moves slightly, I'll be able to sense it. The Dharma assembly competition had officially ended. Next, the ancient desolate sea world would open. It was time for the top 16 Golden Elixir period disciples and the top 8 Foundation establishment disciples to enter and gain experience. However, many of the cultivators in the conference were still immersed in the exciting fights from before. Foundation establishment Yu Hongyan defeated Li Bingqing and Zhou Yuhua. The Sun and Moon Sword couple, 1 against 2. Wang Lin defeated Hu Chun, and the 2 fierce battles between Yu Hongyan and Shi Shaoqian, and Wang Lin and Dao Yuding all displayed powerful strength that made the cultivators of the Golden Elixir period attach great importance to them. And when it came to the Golden Elixir period, there were even more exciting battles. But when everyone thought about it later, they sadly realized that the deepest impression they had was the 2 brothers, Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi, sweeping through all the outstanding heroes and entering the finals. This was definitely a sad story. Before the pinnacle showdown between Zhu Yi and Xiao Budian unfolded, people watched the previous matches. Xiao Budian against Mu Jihai and Zhu Yi against Jiao Junshin. They all felt that victory and defeat was within a hair's breadth. Jiao Junshin and Mu Jihai's defeat seemed to be due to bad luck. However, after witnessing the fight between Zhu Yi and the little guy for the title of champion in the finals, countless people had tears streaming down their cheeks. These two fellow apprentices were competing with other people before, and they simply did not bring out their true abilities. The truth of the matter was that these two people possessed the strength to directly crush all the golden core stage cultivators in this year's Dharma assembly. A cultivator who had participated in previous Desolate Sea spell gathering side and said, "This year's spell gatherings are more intense and exciting than the previous ones. There are also more shocking geniuses appearing." Someone beside him who had the same experience quietly said, "No matter how many geniuses there are, no matter how exciting the competition is, it cannot hide the fact. This year's Desolate Sea spell gathering belongs to Xianmen Tianzong." As soon as this was said, everyone was silent and speechless. Some people wanted to refute, but after opening their mouths, they realized that they could not make any sound. They could only sigh helplessly and keep their mouths shut. Shi Zongyue, Jiao Junshun, Tao Yao Yao, Song Qingyan, Li Dongtao, Yin Mei, Gulei Dokuan, Huaming, Shi Shaoqian, Dao Yuding, Hui Chun, Zamuzalo, Li Bingqing, Zhou Yuhua, Shi Shaoqian, Dao Yuding, Hui Chun, Zamuzalo, Li Bingqing, Zhou Yuhua. These were the geniuses who emerged from this year's Desolate Sea spell gathering. They were the best of the younger generation. Any one of them was a super genius who could do whatever they wanted in their own sect. They had unlimited potential. Among the three, Dao Master Changle had continuously hosted many Desolate Sea spell gatherings. In fact, in his opinion, the average level of the cultivators in this spell gathering was the highest in the past 1,000 years. Among the disciples who participated in the competition, one of them even had the strength to sweep away the previous spell gatherings. However, in the end, these geniuses all became the stepping stones for the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong and became the achievements that were engraved on the monument that made their names shake the world. In the Foundation Establishment Stage competition, 3 people participated and all of them entered the top 8. The only one who did not enter the top 4 was Yang Qing, who was eliminated by her own senior sister. Afterwards, Wang Lin and Yu Hongyan directly took the top 2 places, turning the Foundation Establishment Stage competition into a civil war between Xianmen Tianzong. They took the title of champion in advance. During the Golden Elixir period, it became even more tyrannical. In total, only Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi participated. Afterwards, it was time for these 2 brothers to meet in the finals. Not only did they turn everyone else into spectators, these 2 brothers even fought a battle that could be passed down as a legend in the Golden Elixir period. This made all the other participants of the spell gathering feel so ashamed that they could not show their faces. The most infuriating thing was that these 2 brothers were only in the middle stage of the Golden Elixir period and not even the late stage of the Golden Elixir period. It was to the extent that many people had the same thought. Your Xianmen Tianzong disciples are so strong, you should just play among yourselves. Why did you come to participate in the Desolate Sea spell gathering? Isn't this clearly bullying others? In order to walk far on the path of cultivation, one's temperament and willpower must at least pass. However, this time, the disciples under Lin Feng's tutelage had truly shattered the confidence of a portion of people into dregs. There were originally people who were unconvinced of Lin Feng and secretly doubted him. At this moment, they all felt fear in their hearts. To be able to teach such terrifying disciples, what kind of heaven-reaching divine ability does the master have? Shi Ziyue secretly sighed, waved his sleeves, and immediately said, "The entrance to the Desolate Sea ancient world has already opened. The top 16 in the Golden Elixir period and the top 8 in the Foundation Establishment Stage of the Ordinary Spell Gathering may use the Sea Dragon boat to enter the ancient world. The other disciples may once again enter the Hidden Dragon Pot to trade with each other or exchange pointers and divine abilities. However, private fights are strictly prohibited. Those who wish to leave are also free to do so." Most people still chose to stay. Although they could not enter the Desolate Sea ancient world, they could still use this opportunity to communicate with people from other factions, form good karma, and expand their own network. Furthermore, when the people who entered the ancient world came out, they could immediately go up to greet them. Getting closer to them was one aspect, and these people who entered the ancient world would definitely bring back all kinds of treasures from the desolate sea ancient world. At that time, there might be some benefits. As for the disciples who had obtained a spot to enter the ancient desolate sea world, they were led by their elders and flew above the North Wind Sea. They would board the sea dragon boats here, dive deep underwater, and enter the ancient desolate sea world through the entrance at the bottom of the North Wind Sea. This time, other than the two great demon kings, Jieyu and the Kuei Yo king, Lin Feng's disciples had brought Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian, Wang Lin, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, Tuntin, and Zhuge Fengling to the North Wind Sea ancient world. In the end, when they saw these 7 people board the sea dragon boat, the cultivators from the other sects and factions felt their hearts twitch. They cursed in unison. Monsters! Lin Feng smiled as he watched them board the boat, but in fact he was wailing in his heart. Master also wants to enter the instance dungeon. How can I be left behind with such a good thing? This desolate sea ancient world is too much of a scam. They actually don't allow Yuanian cultivators to enter. The instance dungeon is good. There are spirit herbs, treasures, and it can increase cultivation. I might even be able to kidnap a girl. Lin Feng's mind kept turning. How about I stuff the iron tree clone in? After thinking about it, Lin Feng sighed and gave up on this tempting idea. He said to the group of disciples with a solemn expression, "This time, when you enter the instance dungeon, no, the ancient desolate, see ancient world, remember to be united. If there are any good things, don't be in a hurry to share them. Take them first, but remember not to fight among yourselves." A group of destined people entering the same instance dungeon together. This scene was too beautiful. Lin Feng didn't dare to look at it all. Just thinking about it made him feel dizzy. Therefore, even though he knew that the relationship between them was harmonious, Lin Feng didn't forget to remind them. To put it bluntly, these words were said to Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian, and Wang Lin. Right now, Lin Feng was deathly afraid that the tyrannical aura of the 3 of them would suddenly go off the rails and hurt their own people. That would be a pain in the ass. The group of kids all nodded their heads, seriously listening to Lin Feng's words. But then Lin Feng said something that made them all stare with their eyes wide open. Chapter 339. Facing the group of little radishes in front of him, Lin Feng casually waved his hand. His magic power spread out in the air, turning into a black surface. Lin Feng used his right hand as a pen and wrote a line of white words on the black surface. On the importance of teamwork in an instance dungeon. After pausing for a moment, Lin Feng made a big cross on the word instance dungeon and wrote the words ancient desolate sea world beside it. Logically speaking, Yu Hongyan, Yang Qing, Tuntin, and Zhuge Fengling did not count. Zhu Yi, Xiao Budian, and Wang Lin could easily flatten the ancient desolate sea world and perfectly execute the 3 lights policy. Eat it all, take it all, snatch it all, and even kill it all. However, it was precisely because of this that Lin Feng was not at ease. He explained the importance of teamwork to them, not to deal with outsiders, but to maintain internal stability and harmony. After all, if a chosen one like them went to an instance dungeon, it was hard to say who would suddenly have a group annihilation halo appear above their heads. The so-called group annihilation halo meant that after entering an instance dungeon, he would be fine and earn a lot, but the teammates who entered the instance dungeon with him would all be annihilated. Lin Feng coughed dryly. The ancient desolate sea world is very large. It is indeed a bit of a waste for so many of you to gather together. This time, Xiamen Tianzong had 7 people entering the ancient desolate sea world together. They had the most people among the various factions. The other factions mostly had 3 to 4 people entering the ancient desolate sea world. So let's split into groups first. Lin Feng slowly said, "Tian Hao, Tuntin, and Zhuge Fengling. The 3 of you will form a group." He glanced at Zhu Yi and Wang Lin. Little Yi, Little Lin, Hong Yin, and Little Qing will form a group of 4. Lin Feng had put in a lot of effort to split them into groups. In the same group, it was very important who made the decisions and who was the leader. In teamwork, the first thing to do was to ensure that everyone had a voice. Lin Feng placed a lot of importance on this issue. If he entered the ancient desolate sea world himself, he would definitely be the one giving the orders. But if he didn't go in now, it would be a problem for this group of little radishes to decide who would be in charge and who would be the leader. Xiao Budian and Zhu Yi, as the two direct disciples with the highest cultivations, could not be placed in the same group. Don't look at how young Xiao Budian was. He actually had a lot of ideas. At the same time, in terms of strength, it was a waste for the two of them to be in the same group. It was also not suitable for Wang Lin and Xiao Budian to be in the same group. As the senior brother, Wang Lin had a higher status, but Xiao Budian's cultivation was above his. If the two of them had different opinions, it would be a very painful matter. So even though he knew that the relationship between Wang Lin and Zhu Yi was relatively cold, Lin Feng still decided to put the two of them in the same group. The only thing to worry about was that Xiao Budian, Tuntin, and Zhuge Fengling, these three people who loved to see the world in chaos, were placed in the same group, but there was no one to control them. They were destined to be an extremely destructive, fast-reacting, all-weather troublemaking team. But since it's an instance dungeon, let them be. Lin Feng thought unscrupulously and continued. After splitting into groups, you can split into two directions to explore the ancient desolate sea. The members of the groups can still spread out and move around freely, but you have to ensure that the range of activity is close to your companions in the same group so that it's easier to help each other. The seven of them nodded. Lin Feng stared at them for a moment and suddenly laughed. He looked at the group that Zhu Yi was in and said with a smile, "In your group, Xiao Yi, as the only one in the golden elixir period, the burden on your shoulders is heavier. If you encounter an enemy that requires all of you to work together, you have to coordinate the overall situation and be at the front line. To put it simply, you have to be the main tank to resist the monsters and control the field. Among the remaining people, Hong Yin will be the assistant tank, and you have to shoulder part of the responsibility of DPS. Shaolinzi, you don't have to say much. Distance yourself and find your own position to attack. Attack again and again. You have to bear the burden of being the main DPS. Little Qing, Z, you can be more stable and assist your three senior brothers and senior sisters. At the same time, you also have to be a good healer. You should have seen how I used the lunar true water in our sex dharma to treat your junior brother." Lin Feng was in high spirits as he spoke. He turned to look at the little guy and the rest, and said with a smile, "It's simple for you guys. Tuntin will be in charge of defending. Tianhao, you will be in charge of attacking. As for Zhuge Fengling, you can continue to slack." After he finished speaking, he seemed to want to continue. However, he realized that the seven disciples in front of him were staring at him with their mouths agape and tongue-tied. Everyone's head was filled with question marks. In their left eyes, Lin Feng could see the word Meng, and in their right eyes, the word Ran. Put together, they were a loss. The expressions of the little guy and the rest froze. They stared at their master, dumbfounded. Other than being at a loss, there was nothing else on their faces. Life is as lonely as snow. Lin Feng revealed a dispirited expression and let out a long sigh. The little guy's group of seven all had expressions of shame on their faces. They felt ashamed that they were unable to understand their own master's profound teachings. Lin Feng shook his head. "I don't blame you guys." He was actually just joking in the first place. These kids in front of him already have a lot of combat experience. When it really comes to a dangerous moment, they will make the most appropriate response. Why would they need Lin Feng to set up fixed and rigid tactics in advance? To put it bluntly, Lin Feng was just venting his resentment for not being able to enter this instance dungeon. After watching Zhu Yi and the rest enter the Sea Dragon boat, Lin Feng taught them how to control the Sea Dragon boat and then sent the Sea Dragon boat into the North Wind Sea. On the other side, Shi Zongyue, Blue Thunder Dao Master, Chao Wei, Huixiu, and the other big shots did the same. The 8 Sea Dragon boats dived together and disappeared from the surface of the lake, heading towards the bottom of the North Wind Sea. There was a bright light source there, which was the entrance to the ancient, desolate sea world. After passing through the entrance, the 8 sea dragon boats entered the ancient, desolate sea world. Lin Feng stared at the entrance of the ancient, desolate sea world, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He suddenly discovered that after Zhu, Yi, and the others entered, the entrance to the ancient, desolate sea world shook slightly. Lin Feng carefully sensed and felt that the intersection of the ancient, desolate sea world and the divine land had become less stable than before. He turned to look at Shi Zongyue. Shi Zongyue nodded lightly. Outsiders entering the desolate sea ancient world will cause the already unstable desolate sea ancient world to become even more chaotic. That is why there is a limit on the number of people who can enter. This great Qin king and Liang looked at the entrance of the ancient, desolate sea world with a slightly solemn gaze. We are guarding here to prevent any accidents. Lin Feng nodded and did not say anything. He looked at the hidden dragon pot in the distance, where many cultivators were trading. Even some Yuanning patriarchs were participating. Do you two want to join the fun? Lin Feng smiled and said to Jieyu and Kuei Ox King, the 2 monster kings who had formed their demon-nascent souls, who he had kept in his small world. Jieyu and Kuei Nyo King thought for a while and said in unison, we are grateful for Sect Master's hospitality. We will not join in the fun. Lin Feng also did not force them. In reality, the people at the trade fair are all human cultivators. If these 2 demon kings participate, other people will not make things difficult for them on account of Lin Feng, but both sides will inevitably feel awkward. Sect Master Lin, if you have time, why not come to my Thunder Mountain Range's Purple Firmament Peak? My Purple Firmament Path will welcome you with open arms. Dao Master Lan Ting said with a smile. Feeling Dao Master Lan Ting's kindness, Lin Feng nodded happily. I am extremely grateful for your sect's hospitality. I will definitely go to Purple Firmament Peak in the future. At that time, I will have to trouble Dao Master Lan Ting. As the 2 were talking happily, Lin Feng suddenly felt that one of his sound transmission crystal stones was broken. He used his spiritual power to receive the sound, but it was Xiao Yan's voice. We just contacted not long ago. There was no problem at that time. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and then he heard Xiao Yan's intermittent words, Master, come quickly. Along with the voice, Xiao Yan crushed the space talisman Lin Feng left for him, so that Lin Feng could immediately determine his specific location. Huh, it's a medium-sized world and also an ancient world. Lin Feng frowned slightly and nodded to Dao Master Lan Ting, Shi Zongyue, and the others. There's an emergency that I need to deal with. I will be back soon. Please take care of this place. With that, Lin Feng turned around and directly broke through the void, disappearing on the spot. Shi Zongyue and the other Essence Soul experts looked at each other. Countless thoughts flashed through everyone's mind, trying to guess what could make Lin Feng so anxious. In the void, a clear light floated above Lin Feng's head, and a faint light shadow flashed, which was somewhat similar to the mysterious sky treasure tree at the top of Jade Capital Mountain. The light shadow shook slightly, and Lin Feng instantly passed through the endless void. Such a speed was far beyond the limit of a Yuanning stage cultivator. The next moment, Lin Feng broke the void and directly descended into a new world. This world was full of ancient aura, and Lin Feng could vaguely feel that there were several extremely powerful existences in this medium-sized world. But all of this could not stop when Lin Feng saw Xiao Yan. A monstrous fire ignited in his heart. He was angered to the point of ascending to the heavens. He saw Xiao Yan sitting weakly on the top of a yellow mountain. Most of his black robe had been torn, and even the purple clothes inside were damaged. Lin Feng did not need to get close to him to feel that there were several overbearing and tyrannical auras rampaging in Xiao Yan's body, causing great damage to Xiao Yan's body. Who did this? Lin Feng's face was expressionless, and his voice was as cold as the 9 serenities. When Xiao Yan saw Lin Feng, his face was filled with joy. He had always been strong, but at this moment his face was a little weak. He whispered, Master, As soon as these words came out, Xiao Yan's complexion suddenly changed, and with a wah sound, he spat out a mouthful of blood. This mouthful of blood did not fall to the ground, but instead burned in the air with a loud bang. Pure gold, blue-purple, and gold emitted red and blue lights. 3 kinds of flames burned at the same time, and the moment this mouthful of blood was spat out, it was burned into a wisp of smoke. Lin Feng nodded. Nanmingli fire, very good, very good, very good. The barren mountain under his feet instantly turned into gravel and dust. At this moment, Lin Feng was really angry. Seeing this, Xiao Yan was shocked. In his memory, his master had always had a calm appearance. The last time he saw Lin Feng so angry was also because Xiao Yan was seriously injured in order to protect Zhu, Yi, and Tiny Tot. At that time, Tao Er and the others who attacked all died without even leaving a corpse. Xiao Yan hurriedly grabbed Lin Feng's sleeve. No, master, it's not Jin Er's family, it's me, cough cough. In a moment of desperation, Xiao Yan's internal injuries rushed again, and he directly fainted. Lin Feng was baffled. He reached out to grab Xiao Yan and carefully examined him with his magic power. Suddenly, his complexion became strange. Chapter 340. Lin Feng probed Xiao Yan's body with his magic power. After a careful examination, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was because he found that Xiao Yan's injuries were not caused by an external enemy. The Nanmingli fire that was wreaking havoc in his body was not injured by an enemy and remained in his body. According to Lin Feng's speculation, Xiao Yan should have taken the initiative to obtain the Nanmingli fire and tried to absorb it. Who knew that it would cause the 3 true fires in his body to go berserk? In other words, Xiao Yan had fallen to this state because he was tortured by the uncontrollable power in his body. Each of the 7 true fires had the power to burn the heavens and destroy the earth. When they met each other, there would not be any heroes appreciating each other and talking happily. On the contrary, there would be no room for 2 tigers on one mountain, and they would fight each other until a victor was decided. There was a special reason why Xiao Yan could control the true sun fire and the evil inferno fire at the same time. In terms of the true sun fire, he learned the great sun brilliant heaven scripture from Lin Feng. In terms of the evil inferno fire, it was because he controlled the evil inferno overlord sword. With such a 2-pronged approach and the control and balance of the great way of the 8 trigrams, Xiao Yan could control the power of the 2 true fires at the same time. Not only would he not be harmed, but he could also use it to form his own true fire golden elixir, which surpassed ordinary purple cores. However, this balance was already extremely difficult and fragile. Now that Nanmingli fire, one of the 7 true fires, was suddenly added, the balance was immediately broken. The 3 true fires rebelled in Xiao Yan's body, instantly torturing a hero into a sick chicken. It was your little wife who helped outsiders and secretly passed her Nanmingli fire to you, right? Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yan and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She has feelings for you, but the problem is that you 2 little fools are too reckless. Lin Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. I never thought that it would be so easy to get the Nanmingli fire, but now it seems that it's a big problem. He opened his palms, and a boundless purple aura appeared, surrounding Xiao Yan in the middle. The vigorous magic power entered Xiao Yan's body, directly suppressing the 3 kinds of true fires that were wreaking havoc in a mess. The true fires that were caught off guard were beaten dizzy and disoriented. The 3 great true fires seemed to have emotions. They were enraged at the same time and tacitly stopped fighting among themselves. Together, they faced Lin Feng, who had suddenly interfered. Because the battlefield was within Xiao Yan's body, in order to avoid harming Xiao Yan, Lin Feng was very careful in controlling his power. However, he would never retreat in front of the true fire. Instead, he had to subdue them as soon as possible. The longer the true fire raged, the more damage it would cause to Xiao Yan. Lin Feng's eyes flickered with brilliance. It was like the birth and death of a universe, the resetting of earth, water, fire, and wind, the creation of heaven and earth. Even the turbulence of the universe could be calmed. When this powerful will of strength came down, it immediately suppressed the three great true fires until they were forced to retreat little by little. In the end, they could only withdraw into Xiao Yan's Jindan and struggle at death's door. The chaos of the true fires in his body subsided, and the painful expression on Xiao Yan's face gradually became peaceful. Although he was still very weak, it was no longer a serious problem. After a moment, he regained consciousness. Looking at Lin Feng in front of him, he said with a bitter smile, "You were talking so passionately before. I didn't expect you to ask for help from Master in the blink of an eye." Lin Feng unhappily glanced at him. It's even worse than being beaten to this state by someone. Being injured like this is completely the result of your own doing. If you were injured by someone else, I could still find someone to settle the score with. But now who do you want me to find? Why don't I just beat you up? Xiaoyan stuck out his tongue. Master, please calm down. I didn't expect that trying to integrate the Nanming fire would cause such a big mess. More haste, less speed. Lin Feng tapped his forehead. Right now, whether it's your magic power cultivation or your understanding of the Taoist techniques, it's not enough for you to control the three kinds of true fires at the same time. Lin Feng continued to say, "You should know what you're doing now, right? If you want to control the three kinds of true fires at the same time, you need to at least reach the later stage of the golden elixir, and the golden elixir is perfect and flawless." Xiao Yan's face was bitter. Yes, when these three kinds of true fires were causing trouble, I had a vague feeling that if I had the cultivation of the golden elixir later stage, it wouldn't be impossible for me to control them. From now on, including after returning to Yujing Mountain, you can go into seclusion with peace of mind. Don't fight with others. Wait until you reach the later stage of the golden elixir. Lin Feng said, "With my magic power to protect you, it's not impossible for you to fight with others. But are you willing for me to always protect you?" Xiao Yin kept shaking his head. "How can I do that?" "Master, don't worry. I'll definitely focus on cultivation and strive to break through to the later stage of the golden elixir as soon as possible." His bitter face was all squeezed together. He knew his own situation very well. Now, not only was Lin Feng's magic power helping to suppress them, but Xiao Yan's own magic power was also used to balance and suppress the three true fires that were causing trouble. Once he fought with others, even if Xiao Yan didn't use the power of the true fires and only used his own magic power, it would still cause the three true fires to go out of control. Unless Lin Feng was always by his side to take care of him, but that would be like a hen protecting its chicks. That kind of life would be a nightmare for Xiao Yan. Lin Feng looked at Xiao Yan, who was frowning, and sighed in his heart. His eldest disciple, the sect leader, had ruined himself just like that. Previously, Xiao Yan was known as the #1 warrior under Lin Feng, the vanguard, Shigandang. His natural disposition was unyielding, brave, and fearless. When the sect was provoked and threatened, he was definitely the first person to stand up. As a result, he had now made himself powerless. The contrast even made Lin Feng have the urge to laugh. Seeing the faint smile in Lin Feng's eyes, Xiao Yan curled his lips gloomily. After a long while, he also laughed and shook his head. This time, he was really rash, and the result was that he had dug a pit for himself. Lin Feng said with a smile, "Well, don't worry. This time, it might be a blessing in disguise. Concentrate on your cultivation, and when you successfully advance to the late stage of the golden elixir, your strength will have a qualitative leap with the three great true fires in your body." Slowly, he said, "If you can take the opportunity of the Yin Wind tribulation to fuse the Nanming Leaf fire into your golden elixir and truly make it your own, then even the quality of your golden elixir will go up a level. It will be of great benefit to you when you form your nascent soul in the future. Of course, it will be 1,000 times more dangerous than crossing the Yin Wind tribulation under normal circumstances. This requires careful planning, but you don't need to worry about this problem. Master will arrange it for you. What you need to do is to cultivate in peace and balance the three great true fires in preparation for breaking through to the late stage of the golden elixir. Xiaoyan nodded hard. Disciple understands, and I will definitely not let you down, Master. After talking about business, the fire of gossip in Lin Feng's heart was reignited. He said with a smile, "This Nanmingli fire of yours was given to you by your little wife, right? You met her. What was the result?" Xiaoyan laughed. "I met her. The Nanmingli fire was indeed given to me by Zhan Er. She also taught me a part of her family's secret Dao technique, the Leaf Fire Divine Incantation." Lin Feng grinned. "This is really helping an outsider. Little Yin, good job. You can already get the girl's dowry." But Xiaoyan's mood quickly became gloomy. But after meeting Zhan Er in a hurry, they soon separated. She said that her family situation is very chaotic now. Lin Feng nodded. It seems that her family's original established policy has not changed. He glanced at Xiaoyan. "But I don't know if Xiao Zhan Er's family will affect her marriage because of this. Generally speaking, a talented female disciple like her has almost complete control over her marriage. But if her family continues the previous decision, there may be some waves." Xiaoyan said in a deep voice, "If that's the case, I will definitely come back here and take her away." Lin Feng thought, "Little Yin, oh little Yin, your road to marriage may not be smooth. But don't worry, these twists and turns will only add a little embellishment to your magnificent legendary journey. Those who dared to snatch a woman from the Prince of Heaven, like you, are actually here to give you a congratulatory gift. You can extort a lot of money from them." "All right, Master, how is the situation of the Wasteland Sea Assembly?" Xiaoyan suddenly thought of something and hurriedly asked, "Will you delay the assembly by coming here to find me?" Lin Feng smiled. "Don't worry, in the foundation establishment stage, Little Lin, Hong Yin, and Little Qing all advanced to the top 8. In the end, Little Lin and Hong Yin entered the finals together and took the top 2 places. Hong Yin was the champion of the foundation establishment stage." Hearing this, Xiaoyan's face showed a sincere expression of joy. He wanted to say something, but suddenly paused and carefully asked Lin Feng, "Fifth junior brother, who lost to?" Lin Feng understood what he was thinking and smiled. Little Qing's luck was not good. In the top 8 to top 4, he was drawn against Hong Yin. Xiaoyan immediately let out a sigh of relief and gloated. Then his luck is really not good. It's better to be drawn against third junior brother than fourth junior sister. He didn't get beaten black and blue by fourth junior sister, right? Lin Feng shook his head and continued. In the golden elixir period, there was no suspense. Xiaoyi and Tianhao went to the finals, and in the end, Tianhao won. Xiaoyan laughed. "Good job, well done. I'm relieved now." Lin Feng glanced at him. "What are you worried about? By the way, Xiaoyi and Tianhao have also advanced to the middle stage of the golden elixir period." Xiaoyan laughed heroically. "This is a good thing. I really want to compete with them and see who is stronger." At this point, his voice suddenly stopped. At this time, Xiaoyan suddenly remembered that right now, he was truly like a tiger that had fallen to the plains. Don't mention Xiao, Budian, and Zhu Yi. He couldn't even beat Wang Lin, Yu Hongyin, and Yang Qing. These 3 foundation establishment stage junior brothers and sisters. To put it bluntly, it was questionable whether he could defeat Zhuge Fengling. Xiaoyan looked at Lin Feng with a faint smile and said softly after a while, "We'll compete when everyone is at the later stage of the golden elixir period, and then we'll compete when the golden elixir period is at the later stage." Lin Feng laughed and shook his head. Just as he was about to tease Xiaoyan, his heart suddenly jumped. "What's going on? There are 7 primordial souls at the North Wind Sea. How can something happen?" Chapter 341. Lin Feng could not be bothered to continue bickering with Xiaoyan. He used his magic power to wrap around Xiaoyan, broke through space, and stepped into the void, quickly returning to the North Wind Sea. When Lin Feng returned to the sky above the North Wind Sea, he could not help but be shocked. The North Wind Sea which was incomparably vast and was almost equivalent to an inland ocean, had already disappeared without a trace. Tens of millions of cubic meters of lake water had all evaporated, leaving only a huge crater where it had been. The landscape here had been completely changed, and the lake had directly become a basin. At the center of the basin, there was a hole that looked like a well. It was nearly 100 meters in diameter, and it flickered with light. That was the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world. It was originally hidden deep under the North Wind Sea, but now it was directly exposed to the air. The great Qin Onliang King, Shi Zhongyue, Tao Venerate of Gambling Zhugeguang, and Tao Venerate Blue Thunder, the three great essence soul realm experts, were currently standing at the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world with ashen faces. Boundless, mysterious magic power surged out from the three of them, and together they supported the spatial crack at the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world. Power, space, time, life, layer after layer of profound principles and concepts shook the world, but they were extremely careful and cautious. Above the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world, the hidden dragon kettle floated in midair. The mouth of the kettle was facing downwards, and threads of light shot out from the mouth of the kettle. Within the light was the distorted space of heaven and earth, which was connected to the ancient desolate sea world. What made Lin Feng's scalp go numb was that he could feel that the ancient desolate sea world was currently extremely unstable. It was actually in danger of collapsing at any time. It was all thanks to the magic power and magical abilities of the three great essence soul realm experts, as well as the magic treasure hidden in the hidden dragon kettle, that the ancient desolate sea world was barely maintained and did not collapse. Lin Feng could even clearly use his own eyes to see the edge of the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world shaking nonstop. The edges of the ancient desolate sea world and the divine land constantly rubbed against each other, and they were on the verge of destruction. As long as there was the slightest disturbance, the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world would immediately collapse. Even if the ancient world was not destroyed, the passageway connecting to the divine land would disappear. Lin Feng only felt a chill rush from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. Apart from Xiao Yin, all of his direct disciples are currently in the ancient desolate sea world. If the ancient desolate sea world is destroyed, just like this, then the Xian Gate Sky sect is pretty much going to be wiped out. Not daring to hesitate, Lin Feng nodded at Shi Zhongyue and the other two before flicking his finger. A speck of light flew out and landed at the entrance of the ancient desolate sea world. The spots of light expanded rapidly, turning into countless rays of light. Then, these rays of light rapidly formed an incomparably huge magic array with strange trajectories and patterns. Within the formation, countless mysterious rune diagrams rose and fell one after another, combining together to form a huge pattern that covered a radius of hundreds of miles around the wasteland. This pattern was black and white, the two extremes of yin and yang, and it was filled with a majestic sense of power. In the next moment, the huge magic array pattern suddenly shrank, turning into the same size as the entrance to the ancient desolate sea world, and landed on the entrance. Lin Feng formed a seal with his right hand and shouted, "Yin and Yang life and death formation, open. Life and death 6 paths, heaven and earth change, begin." Endless yellow light and purple gas surged out of the magic array, turning into the sky and the earth, the royal sky and the queen earth, harmonious and balanced. Between heaven and earth, all living things were born, forming a complete world. After Lin Feng activated the yin and yang life and death formation, he integrated it into the intersection of the ancient desolate sea world and the divine land, immediately stabilizing the turbulent edge of the space. Directly abandoning all other offensive and defensive functions of the yin and yang life and death formation, Lin Feng used all the power of the formation to stabilize the space, and finally forcefully pulled the ancient desolate sea world back from the brink of collapse. Shi Zhongyue, Zhuge and Dao Lord Blue Thunder all heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. They looked at Lin Feng with increasing interest. I heard that he used a magic array to trap the Taishu Temple treasure, the hexagonal sword, in the Sand Continent. I wonder if it's the same magic array in front of us. To be able to set up such a powerful magic array without relying on the geographical advantage, it's really terrifying. Although they were temporarily relieved, Shi Zongyue and the other two still had ashen faces, and they did not relax at all. It's all thanks to Sect Master Lin's timely return, but now is not the time to talk. Shi Zongyue looked up at the sky with a solemn expression. This old man is the host. Today, I've let everyone see a joke. Without needing him to say anything, Lin Feng could also feel that above his head, there was a terrifyingly powerful force continuously condensing. Previously, his first priority was to stabilize the ancient desolate sea world that was about to collapse. Lin Feng had thrown everything else to the back of his mind. Now that he could finally take a breather, Lin Feng looked up. When he looked up, Lin Feng's eyes immediately widened. What? Damn! The sky above his head was no longer blue. Instead, it was as if someone had forcefully torn open a large hole in the sky, revealing a pitch-black universe. Countless stars twinkled in the universe, and the most dazzling among them were the 9 stars. These 9 stars were clearly in the distant starry sky, but at this moment, it was as if they were right in front of him. Taibai, Jupiter, Chunxing, Jinxing, Sun. At this moment, Lin Feng's expression became as ugly as Shi Zongyue and the other two. He stared at the 2 dark shadows near the sun and moon in the starry sky, which were also emitting terrifying power fluctuations. Those are 2 dark stars, Jidu and Ra. Lin Feng took a deep breath. 9 luminaries. The 7 luminaries of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, sun, and moon, together with the 2 hidden luminaries, Rahu and Jidu, formed the 9 luminaries of the stars in the sky. At this moment, Lin Feng could clearly see the power of the 9 luminaries in the starry sky being guided by someone. The majestic power of the stars gathered in the sky above the ancient desolate sea world, forming a terrifying giant array. The power that made Lin Feng's heart palpitate was currently surging and condensing in this giant array. It was as if the ruler of heaven and earth was about to descend a supreme divine punishment, and it could strike down on Lin Feng's group of 4 at any time. After checking the system, Lin Feng almost cursed it out loud. 9 luminaries sky-shattering array. Isn't this thing long lost? Which bastard did this to move something like a self-propelled satellite cannon here? Arrays that borrowed the majestic power of heaven and earth had always been at the peak of magical powers and dharma spells of the same level. Although there were all kinds of difficulties in setting up the array, once the array was activated, its power could satisfy the owner. The most famous arrays in the human cultivation world were none other than the protective arrays of the 3 holy lands. The Supreme Void Yin-Yang Array of the Taishu Temple, the Vairocana Array of the Great Lane Temple, and the Great Celestial Manifestation Sword Array of the Mount Shu Sword Sect. Other than that, the demon race also had powerful arrays that could move the power of heaven and earth, and there was more than one of them. Among them, the most powerful array of the demon race was the 9 luminary sky-shattering array. It directly borrowed the power of the stars, and the 9 luminaries gathered above one's head. It truly had the power to destroy heaven and earth. However, this formation had already been lost thousands of years ago and had been obliterated without a trace. The most heaven-defying aspect of this array was that, like Lin Feng's yin and yang life and death array, the array mainly relied on the array diagram as the foundation, supplemented by various treasures, and did not need to completely rely on the terrain. The source of power of a 9 luminaries sky-shattering array was actually the power of the stars of the 9 luminaries of the starry sea. Its terrain power was not at a fixed point on the ground, but in the sky above one's head. In this way, the direct result was that the position of this array could be F*King moved. Moreover, another shameless aspect of the 9 luminary sky-shattering array was that the attack range of the array power was extremely far. Lin Feng could see the array from where he was, but in fact, the array was hundreds of thousands of meters away from the ground. It was really hanging above the sky. Lin Feng's Yujing Mountain could move and land in any place in the Divine Land, which became a big trump card for Lin Feng to do whatever he wanted in the world. Now, he also tasted the feeling of being suddenly attacked by the enemy's fortress-level weapon. It can actually draw the power of the stars. The creator of this array is either a genius or a madman. Lin Feng really did not expect that he would actually see the 9 luminary sky-shattering array here today. Moreover, looking at the appearance of this array, although it was a little simple, it was not half-baked. The creator of this array really had a full set of array diagrams. The treasures used to set up the array were not high enough, so the 9 luminary sky-shattering array in front of him could not be fully activated, but it was already strong enough. In the sky, Lin Feng could see several rays of light flashing around the 9 luminary sky-shattering array. Each of them was powerful. It was Huoxiao and a group of Essence Soul experts who were launching the 9 luminary sky-shattering array to attack. However, it could be seen that the 9 luminary sky-shattering array was also controlled by more than one great sage of the demon clan who had achieved the immortal demon soul. The power of the 9 luminaries sky-shattering array not only blocked the attacks of Huoxiao and the others, but also kept increasing the power of the array. The light of the celestial water star became more and more dazzling. Lin Feng could feel that the opponent's next attack was still aimed at the ancient desolate sea world that was already on the verge of collapse. Even if it is not complete, the power of the 9 luminary sky-shattering array is really strong. Dao Master Lan Ting frowned and said, "Just now, the first attack from the celestial gold star broke the defensive array that Prince and Liang and the others had set up in the North Wind Sea. In all fairness, the array of Prince and Liang and the others was already strong enough, but it was still destroyed by the 9 luminary sky-shattering array." Dao Master Lan Ting said worriedly. Then, the second attack from the celestial wood star fell directly on the North Wind Sea and evaporated the entire North Wind Sea. If it were not for the few of us working together to dissipate some of the power, the ancient desolate sea world would have been destroyed on the spot. Now it is the third attack. Sure, Zongyue and Zhuge Guang's faces were as gloomy as water. When had people like them ever been bullied like this? They could only endure the attacks without fighting back. The other party dared to be so unscrupulous because they knew that they wanted to protect the ancient desolate sea world. Not only Lin Feng's Xianmen Tianzong, but the disciples of other sects who were trapped in the ancient desolate sea world at this moment were the elites and future pillars of their respective sections. At the moment of life and death, the few Essence Soul experts might make a decision, but before that, they would definitely try their best to protect the ancient desolate sea world. Lin Feng stared at the sky with a calm expression, slowly saying, "The 3 of you, please go and help the other fellow Taoists." He let out a long breath and said resolutely, "Leave this to me." Chapter 342. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Shi Zongyue and the others were shocked. Shi Zongyue wanted to say something, but stopped. Dao Master Lan Ting had a good relationship with Lin Feng, so he didn't have to worry too much. "Sect Master Lin, if you're alone, I'm afraid," Lin Feng said calmly. "Dao Master Lan Ting, don't worry. Since I dare to say this, I'm confident. Passively defending and letting the array attack is not the way to go. If you can't retreat, you have to find a way to break the array." Lin Feng looked at the flashing shadows in the sky and said, "Also, I believe that the 3 of you can also see that Patriarch Hua and the others have actually reached a critical point in attacking the 9 luminary sky-shattering formation together. As long as they put in a little more effort, they can break this formation." Sure, Zongyue and the others could naturally see this. Because they had to stabilize the ancient desolate sea world, they could only watch anxiously. At this moment, the light of the nine-glory sky collapsing array suddenly dimmed. Lin Feng and the others tensed up. They knew that the array was about to attack for the third time. In the sky, the celestial water star suddenly shone brightly. At the same time, a dazzling blue light beam rushed out of the nine-glory sky, collapsing array, and shot straight at the entrance of the ancient desolate sea world. Within that azure pillar of light, Lin Feng could vaguely see the light of tens of thousands of formations flashing. Each formation seemed to contain endless water element energy from all over the world, so vast that it made one's heart palpitate. Now, these thousands of arrays gathered together and formed a powerful light beam that blasted at the heads of Lin Feng and the others. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. This was the strongest attack he had faced since he came to this world. This was an attack that twisted the heavenly river and borrowed the power of the stars. Primordial spirit, incarnations, and magic treasures were not worth mentioning in front of this attack. Apart from the Prince of Tranquility, Shi Zhongyue, the rest of the Essence Divinity Realm experts present would not be able to bear the consequences if they dared to face the light pillar alone. At the very least, they would be severely injured, and it would be lucky if they did not die. Lin Feng looked up at the blue light beam falling from the sky. He stretched out his hand and suddenly took out a huge black umbrella. Bulwark umbrella. The pupils of Shi Zhongyue and the other two shrank slightly. With their ability to collect intelligence, they naturally heard that Dao Master Xingdo was defeated by this umbrella on Xingyan Peak. However, could this black umbrella withstand the attack of the nine-glory sky-shattering formation? Lin Feng's heart was actually beating like a drum. However, for the sake of the disciples in the ancient desolate sea realm, he could only grit his teeth and bear with it. The azure beam of light reached them in the blink of an eye. Shi Zhongyue and the other two widened their eyes, ready to help Lin Feng at any moment. But then, their eyes opened wider and wider, and the look in their eyes became more and more lifeless. The thick beam of light, which was nearly a kilometer in diameter, suddenly distorted in space and became much smaller. It fell on top of Lin Feng's bulwark umbrella. It looked like someone had poured a basin of water on Lin Feng's head from the sky. The surface of the umbrella trembled when it hit it, but the water bounced off and did not wet Lin Feng at all. But when the scattered water fell elsewhere, it instantly turned into monstrous waves and boundless oceans. The land within thousands of miles of the North Wind Sea was flooded, almost completely turning the land into an ocean. This scene told everyone that what Lin Feng had just blocked was not a basin of water, but the bombardment of countless water spiritual chi essences. The water spiritual chi, under the influence of the nine-glory sky-shattering formation, had an extremely violent, destructive power and impact. But now, it had been completely dissolved by the bulwark umbrella and could only turn into ordinary water. Although the amount of water was enormous, it no longer had the terrifying power from before. The umbrella covered the sky. Even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, there would still be a safe and pure land under the umbrella. Shi Zhongyue and Dao Master Chong Lu came to their senses and used various means to collect the water. They could not let such a large amount of water spread unrestrainedly. Otherwise, the entire northeast of the Great Qin dynasty would be flooded into a giant swamp comparable to the Great Swamp of the ancient domain. At this time, they looked at Lin Feng with more than caution and fear. Although Lin Feng was not present when the nine-glory sky-shattering formation attacked, as soon as he arrived, he used his divine sense and almost instantly reversed the disadvantageous situation. First, he used a formation to stabilize the ancient desolate sea world that was about to collapse, and then he used his divine sense to resist the attack of the nine-glory sky-shattering formation all by himself. Such means could really be called divine sense and boundless magic power. In the thousands of years of life of Shi Zhongyue and the other two, it was not that they had not seen people with such divine sense, but they did not expect to see it from Lin Feng. They originally thought that they had overestimated Lin Feng, but they did not expect that in the end, they still underestimated him. Silently, Lin Feng opened the bulwark umbrella and floated above the entrance of the ancient desolate sea world. He looked at the nine-glory sky, shattering formation that was accumulating power in the sky, and said calmly, "Leave this to me." The same sentence at this moment, the three essence soul realm experts heard it again, and their mood was completely different. Shi Zhongya gritted his teeth and said, "I will take the hidden dragon pot. Chang Lu, you endow Master Lan Ting stay and help sect Master Lin." After saying that, Shi Zhongyue's magic power swept the hidden dragon pot, and both of them flew up. Tied down by the ancient desolate sea world, they could only take a beating and not fight back. This big shot had already suppressed endless anger in his heart. A light shadow of a long-bearded old man flew out from the mouth of the hidden dragon pot. He also had an ugly expression. It was the hidden dragon pot's magic treasure, primordial spirit, and he was also very sullen. Although it had opened up a grotto heaven space inside. In fact, the hidden dragon pot was a treasure for killing. Stabilizing space was not its strength at all. The hidden dragon pot's true power lay in attacking and killing. Shi Zhongyue let out a long roar, and his body suddenly turned into a light shadow. In midair, a giant nearly 300 feet tall appeared. His body was covered in raging flames, and he had a dragon head and a human body. His roar shook the nine heavens. The Red Dragon Emperor. The dragon-headed Red Dragon Emperor appeared, and endless raging flames swept the entire world. Whether it was Huoxiu and the others in the sky, or Lin Feng and the other two on the ground, they could all feel the heat waves rushing towards them. Even with their cultivation, they instantly felt like they had fallen into a furnace. This was just the aura that the Red Dragon Emperor naturally emitted, and it did not really launch an attack. But the land within 1,000 miles of the North Wind Sea had already turned into a scorched land, and the ground was dry and cracked like a spider's web. As the hidden dragon pot vibrated, its size also grew in the wind, turning into a giant pot that was hundreds of feet tall and dozens of feet in diameter. Powerful waves of magic power spread out, shaking the surrounding space until cracks appeared. A golden light dragon flew out from the mouth of the pot, wrapping around the right arm of the Red Dragon Emperor that Shi Zhongyue had manifested. The Red Dragon Emperor raised his right arm, and the raging flames that almost burned a hole in the space fused with the golden light dragon, turning into a golden beam of light that shot up to the nine heavens. Wherever the golden beam of light passed, the space rippled continuously. The beam of light was filled with a powerful concept of invincibility that could penetrate and destroy all obstacles. It was ancient, vast, and vigorous, as if it could pass through infinite worlds until it reached its target, unwavering. Even a nine-glory sky, collapsing matrix in the sky, shook a little. The power of the matrix gathered and forcefully withstood the powerful attack of Shi Zhongyue and the hidden dragon pot. In the distant horizon, there was suddenly a huge explosion of fire. Raging flames covered the sky and scattered in the air, dyeing the entire sky crimson. Shi Zhongyue's attack was only slightly weaker than the attack of the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix. When it hit the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix head-on, the entire matrix immediately shook, and the runes at the edge of the matrix even showed signs of damage. After the damage appeared, the brilliance of the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix flowed, and it rapidly repaired itself. But how could Huoxiu sword venerable flowing light, and the others give it a chance to breathe? Everyone's attacks were aimed at the gap that Shi Zhongyue had opened. The joint attacks of several primordial soul realm experts almost tore the sky apart. The already damaged nine-glory sky collapsing matrix could not withstand the attacks, and the cracks in the matrix became bigger and bigger. The brilliance of the matrix dimmed a little, and the huge crack in the sky also began to gradually close. The universe became more and more distant, and it seemed like it was about to disappear. But everyone's expressions did not relax at all, because they suddenly realized that the brilliance of the red fire star was becoming more and more dazzling. There's still a fourth attack. Sword Venerable Flowing Light's expression changed. He stared at the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix and said in a deep voice, "And it wants to abandon the defensive power of the matrix itself to speed up the launch of the fourth attack." The group of Primordial Soul Realm experts all had ugly expressions. Previously, after the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix attacked once, it needed a long time to accumulate energy again. But that was not because the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix itself was like that, but because the matrix needed to coordinate a part of the power to resist their attacks. So the frequency of the attack was slowed down. But now, the other party was obviously going to make a final attack. They completely abandoned the defense of the matrix itself, allowing Sword Venerable Flowing Light and the others to attack. But the fourth attack of the matrix was about to be launched. Prince Wuxian's expression was extremely ugly. The fourth attack will draw the star power of the red fire star. Its power is similar to the first attack that draws the star power of the gold star. It will be stronger than the second and third attacks. Previously, the first attack of the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix had drawn the star power of the gold star and directly destroyed the defensive matrix that the Great Qin dynasty had set up on the Northwind Sea. That matrix naturally could not be compared to the defensive matrix of the Great Qin Imperial City. The geographical conditions of the Northwind Sea were only considered average. But it was still a powerful matrix, yet had been destroyed by the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix in one attack. After that, the second strike with the wood celestial star and the third strike with the water celestial star were actually slightly weaker in terms of power. But now, the violent power that was comparable to the first attack was attacking again. Under Shi Zongyue's lead, the group of Primordial Soul Realm experts frantically attacked the nine-glory sky collapsing matrix, wanting to completely destroy it before the fourth attack was released. The attacks of a group of Primordial Soul Realm experts were no small matter. Almost instantly, the already broken matrix was completely destroyed. But they were still a step too late. A scarlet light pillar descended from the sky. It was much more ferocious than the attack that Shi Zongyue had launched together with the dragon concealing pot. It struck the entrance of the ancient desolate sea world on the ground with a violent power that could destroy the earth. At this moment, everyone's gazes were on the ground. There, Lin Feng held the heaven-shrouding umbrella and looked at everything calmly. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.